The day I died, the top trending topic was hashtag Yuhuan deserved it hashtag. They said I was jealous of the school beauty, Chen Meng, and that I stopped the whole class from going to the snake cave because I had ulterior motives, which led to the school beauty dying because no one protected her. Even when the boy's knife stabbed into my stomach, I was still thinking, if only I had been able to stop them back then. When I opened my eyes, I had returned to the day Chen Meng sent a voice message in the class group chat. I heard there's a white snake in the snake cave that can communicate with spirits. Let's all go on an adventure there after the college entrance exam. I watched the agree messages keep popping up on my phone, watched my boyfriend Xia Qing be the first to sign up, and watched Chen Meng raise her eyebrows at me smugly. In my last life, I begged them in tears not to go. This time, I replied in the group chat with a smile, remember to take lots of videos, I want to see them in high definition. After all, this time, I wanted to see for myself how they would be torn apart by the snake swarm, to watch through Chen Meng's livestream camera as that pretty face twisted and distorted. Didn't you say I was jealous? Fine, then let me, this vicious supporting female character, properly enjoy your ending. 1. The searing pain of the knife blade piercing my abdomen still lingered at the tips of my nerves. I suddenly opened my eyes and instinctively clutched my stomach with both hands. But what my fingertips touched was the soft fabric of my pajamas, not warm blood. My phone buzzed by my pillow, its glaring white light especially harsh in the dim room. With trembling hands, I picked up the phone. The screen showed the date and time, June 10, 2023, 6:30 a.m. In the class group chat, Chen Meng sent a voice message, followed by 3 cute emojis. My finger hovered above the screen, and I didn't dare tap it for a long time. Yuhuan, are you up? Don't forget we're discussing weekend activities in homeroom this morning. Mom's voice came from outside the door, accompanied by the smell of fried eggs. I bit my lower lip hard until I tasted rust. This wasn't an illusion. I had really gone back 1 month, back to that day that changed everything. The bathroom mirror reflected a pale face, dark with the blue shadows of sleeplessness beneath the eyes. I turned on the faucet and splashed the cold water on my face. The scenes from the online abuse in my previous life still flashed through my mind. Murderer, jealous bitch, why don't you just go die? And finally, that boy's bloodshot eyes and the folding knife plunged into my abdomen. This time it's different, I said to myself in the mirror. The classroom was already buzzing with excitement. Chen Meng was wearing a white chiffon dress, like an elegant white swan, surrounded by adoring attention in the center. Her laughter was crisp and pleasant to the ear, and from time to time she tucked her long hair behind her ear, revealing her slender neck. Look at this. She held up her phone. On the screen was a post about the snake cave on Qingfeng Mountain. They say there's a white snake that's been cultivating there for 1,000 years, and when it sees someone fated to meet it, it'll reveal its true form. How about we go explore it after the college entrance exam? The boys immediately erupted into an uproar. Xia Cheng was the first to respond. That's so cool. I've wanted to go check that place out for ages. He stood beside Chen Meng, even more attentive than I remembered, his eyes almost glued to her. My stomach cramped violently. In my previous life, I stood up to oppose it at this very moment, and then became the entire class's enemy. Yuhuan, Chen Meng noticed my presence, her sweet voice carrying a hint of provocation. What do you think? Everyone's gaze turned to me. Xia Qing frowned, warning written in his eyes. In my previous life, I would have been heartbroken all day because of that small gesture. Now I only found it laughable. Sounds interesting, I said calmly, seeing surprise flash in Chen Meng's eyes. But safety measures need to be in place. Chen Meng quickly regained her smile. Of course, I'll get all the equipment ready. She turned to the whole class and clapped her hands. If anyone wants to join, come sign up with me. We'll form an exploration team. Xia Cheng looked at me suspiciously, seeming to wonder why I wasn't trying to stop him as usual. In my previous life, I would have tossed and turned over that look of his, wondering if I was being too controlling. Now all I felt was relief. Since you insist on courting death, why should I stop you? Sunlight streamed through the glass window onto his side profile, outlining the contours I had once loved so deeply. I looked at him and noticed for the first time that he had a tiny mole at the corner of his eye. I had somehow never noticed it in my past life. If you want to go, then go. I shrugged. You're not going to listen to anything I say anyway. Xia Cheng was stunned for a moment, then revealed a relieved smile. You've finally come around. I knew it. Activities organized by Chen Meng are definitely safe. Her cousin is a wilderness survival expert. I almost burst out laughing. In my past life, Chen Meng said the same thing, but in the end, her so-called expert cousin, couldn't be reached at all, but this time, I just nodded, have fun. As I turned around, I saw Chen Meng standing at the back door of the classroom, her gaze moving back and forth between us. Meeting my gaze, she gave a winner's smile, her slender fingers twirling a strand of hair in front of her chest. Let her laugh. She wouldn't be able to laugh for much longer. After school, I didn't wait for Xia Cheng to leave with me as usual. I bought a brand new notebook at the convenience store by the school gate, with a dark blue cover. Much like the night sky over the snake den, on the first page, I wrote today's date, followed by a line of text. This time, I choose to stand by and watch, too. As soon as the lunch break bell rang, Chen Meng fluttered up onto the podium like a colorful butterfly, her slender fingers holding a pink sheet of paper. Students signing up to go to the snake pit, come here to sign your names. Her voice was so sweet it seemed to drip with honey. We're only accepting the first 15 people, first come, first served. The boys immediately swarmed forward, like a school of fish fighting over food. Xia Cheng relied on his height advantage to squeeze to the front first, and with a sweeping stroke wrote down his name, then turned back and raised his eyebrows at me with a smug look. In my previous life, this gesture would have torn my heart apart. Now I only found it ridiculous. I stayed seated, not moving, leisurely munching on a sandwich. Chen Meng's gaze crossed over the crowd and landed on me, carrying the superiority of a winner. "You Huan, aren't you coming?" She deliberately raised her voice. "Could it be that you're scared?" The classroom fell silent for a moment. Everyone turned to look at me, waiting for me to, as always, go head-to-head with Chen Meng. I swallowed the last bite of my sandwich and wiped my hands. "Of course I'll go," I said with a smile, "but I need to check some materials first and get prepared." Chen Meng was visibly stunned. The pink sign-up form in her hand trembled slightly. She hadn't expected me to agree so readily. Xia Cheng also frowned, staring at me suspiciously, as if a pair of horns had suddenly sprouted from my head. Then, sign here," Chen Meng said, barely keeping her smile as she handed over the sign-up form. I walked to the podium and neatly wrote, "Yu Huan," below Xia Cheng's name. The rich perfume on Chen Meng's body drifted into my nostrils. It was a newly released girl's fragrance from some luxury brand, so sweet it was cloying. "I heard snakes are very sensitive to smells," I said softly. "Aren't you afraid that wearing such a strong perfume will attract a swarm of snakes?" Chen Meng's expression changed slightly, but she quickly put on her signature sweet smile again. "Yu Huan, you really worry too much. We're not going into a snake nest, we're just taking a walk nearby." I nodded and said nothing more, then returned to my seat and took the dark blue notebook out of my backpack. Flipping to the second page, I began recording the list of people who signed up today. Chen Meng, Xia Cheng, Zhao Jiqiang the sports monitor, Li Wei the class monitor. 14 people in all, one fewer than in my previous life. My pen paused on the last name, Zhang Peng, the thug leader from the neighboring class. In my previous life, he hadn't participated. It seemed Chen Meng had expanded the recruitment scope this time. "Are you really going?" Xia Cheng didn't know when he had appeared in front of my desk, blocking the sunlight and casting a shadow. "What? Not welcome?" I didn't look up, and kept jotting down everyone's contact information in my notebook. "No," Xia Cheng scratched his head. "I just think you've been acting kind of strange lately." I finally looked up at him. Xia Cheng was wearing a dark blue t-shirt today, which made his skin look very fair. I used to love him looking like this, but now I only felt unfamiliar with him. People change. I closed my notebook. "By the way, did you bring any snake repellent?" Xia Cheng looked baffled. "What's snake repellent?" "Nothing," I smiled. "Chen Meng will prepare it, right?" The last period in the afternoon was self-study, and I asked the homeroom teacher for leave, saying I was going to the library to look up college entrance exam materials. When I walked out of the school gate, I glanced back at the classroom window and just happened to see Chen Meng leaning close to Xia Cheng's ear, saying something. The two of them were smiling brightly. The air conditioning in the city library was blasting. I shivered and headed straight for the natural biology section. There was pitifully little information about the Qingfeng Mountain Snake Cave, only one yellowed county gazetteer and a few academic papers. Qingfeng Mountain Snake Cave is located in the core area of the nature reserve and belongs to an undeveloped primitive landform. I read softly, my fingers sliding over the rough paper. 27 species of snakes have been found, including 9 venomous species. Among them the highly poisonous Mangshan pit viper and short-tailed viper. "Are you interested in snakes?" A deep male voice came from behind me, and I was so startled I nearly threw the book away. Turning around, I saw an unfamiliar face, a tall boy wearing our school uniform and a pair of black-rimmed glasses, with eyes sharp as a hawk behind the lenses. Zhou, Senior Zhou, I recognized him. Zhou Yi, the student council president, 2 grades above me, a legendary figure who had been admitted to Tsinghua without taking the entrance exam. He gave a slight nod, his gaze falling on the materials in my hands. Qingfeng Mountain is a restricted area, it's very dangerous. I was just curious. I subconsciously closed the book. Zhou Yi pushed up his glasses. Just last week, some hikers trespassed and got bitten. They're still in the ICU. His voice was very calm, yet carried an undeniable air of authority. If you're planning to go on an adventure, I suggest you drop the idea. My heart skipped a beat. In my previous life, we had never heard about this before setting out, and Chen Meng had sworn up and down that the place was perfectly safe. Thanks for the warning. I hesitated, but still asked, if someone gets bitten by a venomous snake, how do you do first aid in the wild? Zhou Yi's gaze turned inquisitive. He was silent for a few seconds, then suddenly took a notebook out of his backpack and handed it to me. My father works at a wildlife conservation station. This is the first aid guide I compiled. I took the notebook and opened to the first page, where I saw a detailed snakebite first aid flowchart, along with identification features of various venomous snakes and a corresponding antivenom chart. Thank you so much. My voice trembled a little. If I had had this in my last life, maybe that boy who was bitten wouldn't have. Why are you asking about this? Zhou Yi suddenly asked. Is someone in your class planning to go? I bit my lip and didn't answer directly. How do you know so much about snakes, Senior? I grew up in a nature reserve, Zhou Yi said briefly, then took a business card out of his pocket. If someone needs help, they can call this number. Printed on the business card were the words, Qingfeng Mountain Nature Reserve Management Office, and on the back was a phone number handwritten in ink. I solemnly tucked it into the blue notebook. When I left the library, the sun had already sunk in the west. I stood at the bus stop, turned to a new page in the notebook, and began to carefully record the information I had found today, including what Zhou Yi had told me. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message in the class group chat. Chen Meng sent a photo of herself standing in front of a pile of gear, flashing a peace sign, with the caption, Exploration Team Equipment in Place. In the corner of the photo, I saw Xia Cheng helping her organize her backpack. I zoomed in on the photos and noticed those so-called professional gear, cheap trekking poles, sunscreen jackets thin as cicada wings, flashy camping lights, and a few bottles of insect repellent that were completely unsuitable for the wild. Not a single one of them was actually snake-proof. When I got home, I received a text from Xia Cheng, Huan, Chen Meng, and I discussed it, and we feel this event is too intense and might not be suitable for you. How about you join next time instead? I stared at the screen, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. In my last life, I had desperately tried to stop them from going. In this life, it had become them thinking of me. Okay, be careful out there, I replied. Then flipped open my notebook and drew a tiny skull symbol next to Chen Meng's name. On the day of departure, the weather was surprisingly good. I stood at the school gate and watched Chen Meng lead her expedition team, full of confidence, onto the rented bus. Today, she was wearing an all-white tracksuit with her hair tied up high, looking like a professional explorer. You Huan, Xia Cheng ran over with an apologetic smile on his face. You're really not going? I shook my bandaged right foot. I twisted it yesterday, and the doctor said I need to rest. Xia Cheng's expression visibly relaxed. Then get plenty of rest at home. We'll bring you back the photos. Be sure to stay safe, I said softly. I heard some hikers were bitten there recently. Xia Cheng's smile stiffened for a moment. Chen Meng said her cousin arranged everything. It's very safe. I nodded and watched him run back to the bus. Through the window, I saw Chen Meng sitting in the front row, smiling and waving at Xia Cheng. Zhang Peng was sitting beside her, his arm resting casually on the back of the seat behind her. The bus slowly pulled away, kicking up a cloud of dust. I took out my phone and opened the live stream link Chen Meng had just sent. On the screen, she was pouting cutely at the camera. Guys, our adventure has begun. I heard we'll be able to see the 1,000-year-old white snake today. I turned off the sound and shoved the phone back into my pocket. As I turned around, I saw Zhou Yi standing under the plane trees at the school gate, gazing thoughtfully in the direction the bus had departed. How many people went? He asked as he walked over. 15, I said. The girl leading them said. Her cousin is an outdoor survival expert. Zhou Yi's brows furrowed even more tightly. The reserve has been cracking down on illegal trespassers recently. They won't be able to get in. I didn't tell him that in my previous life. Chen Meng led the whole class in through a little-known side path. One that had been told to her by one of her suitors. I hope they'll back down when they realize how hard it is, I said softly, while silently counting down in my mind. 24 hours later, they would step into that realm of death. 3. I sat at my desk. The computer screen split in two. On the left was Chen Meng's live stream, and on the right was the collection of high school entrance exam mistakes I was organizing. One of the advantages of reincarnation was that I remembered the answers to most of the exam questions. Guys, look here. Chen Meng's voice came through the speakers, sweet to the point of cloying. She pointed the camera toward a dense patch of bushes. This is the legendary entrance to the snake den. We've already got 3,000 likes. Once we hit 5,000, I'll do a close-up snake shooting performance for everyone. I paused the problem solving and enlarged the live stream screen. The so-called entrance Chen Meng mentioned was actually a protective fence that had been damaged by human hands. A warning sign reading, "No entry," was still hanging on the irregularly torn barbed wire. In my previous life, I saw this exact scene and frantically called to try to stop them, only to end up being mocked by the whole class for being as timid as a mouse. The bullet comments scrolled by rapidly. Meng Meng is so brave, be careful, where is the white snake, I want to see it. As the camera jolted, I caught a glimpse of Xie Cheng. He stood at the edge of the crowd, not surrounding Chen Meng like the other boys, but instead frowning as he surveyed the surroundings. This was a little different from the Xie Cheng I remembered. At this point in my previous life, he should have been busy helping Chen Meng hold her selfie stick. Xie Cheng, don't just stand there, Chen Meng said coquettishly. Hurry up and help me with my bag. I'm going to live stream myself crossing through the protective net for everyone. Xie Cheng hesitated for a moment, but still walked over and took her pink backpack. Just as Chen Meng bent down and was about to squeeze through the wire fence, he suddenly reached out and stopped her. Wait, there really seems to be a warning sign here. Hey, that's for ordinary tourists, Chen Meng said impatiently, waving her hand. My cousin said this is the safest way in. Hurry up, everyone in the live stream is waiting. I gave a cold laugh and wrote in the blue notebook. 1327. Illegal entry into the protected area. The live stream image shook violently as Chen Meng nimbly slipped through an opening in the barbed wire fence, with the others following close behind. Xie Cheng trailed at the back. The camera caught the moment he turned to look back, his face full of unease. Keep close to me, everyone. Chen Meng's voice turned shrill with excitement. My cousin said if we follow this creek, we'll see the cave where the white snake appears. In the footage, the 15-person team looked like a brightly colored worm, wriggling through the dim mountain forest. Chen Meng walked at the front, occasionally letting out exaggerated shrieks. Something just slid past my foot. Then she made faces at the camera. It might be a little white snake. I turned the volume down and picked up my phone to make a call. Qingfeng Mountain Nature Reserve Management Office. How may I help you? A woman's voice came on the line. Hello. I lowered my voice. I just saw someone damage the protective fence and enter the restricted area on the southern slope of Qingfeng Mountain. After hanging up, I kept watching the live stream. Chen Meng had already led the team deep into the mountains, where the surrounding vegetation grew thicker and thicker, and the sunlight could barely penetrate the layers upon layers of leaves. A few girls began complaining that the path was too hard to walk, but Chen Meng ignored them completely and focused only on interacting with the live stream audience. Guys, you're amazing, 8,000 likes, she said excitedly, jumping up. I keep my word, I'm going to find a snake right now and film it for everyone to see. She pulled a long metal pole from her backpack, with a phone mount attached to the top. It was equipment I had never seen in my previous life, a homemade, snake filming pole. Chen Meng, isn't this way too dangerous? The class monitor Li Wei's voice came from off-screen. We don't even know how to recognize venomous snakes. What are you afraid of? Chen Meng said dismissively, shaking the small bottle in her hand. I brought 2 bottles of Realgar wine. Snakes are most afraid of this. I abruptly sat up straight. Realgar wine. She hadn't prepared that at all in her previous life. It seems my change in attitude triggered the butterfly effect. Chen Meng, in order to prove she was more well-prepared than I imagined, instead made even more dangerous preparations. The camera cut to the ground, where Chen Meng used a metal rod to part a patch of shrubs. Suddenly, a gray-brown snake darted out like lightning, then quickly disappeared into the fallen leaves. Ah! Chen Meng screamed as she stumbled back a few steps, then burst into laughter again. Did you see that? That one just now was definitely White Snake's little brother. the live stream just broke 10,000 likes, love you all. The barrage of comments flooded the screen. That was so intense. Dream, be careful, take more shots of the snake. I stared at the screen, my fingers drumming on the laptop. The snake's shape and movements were very likely those of a highly venomous short-tailed viper, but Chen Meng clearly didn't notice. She was excitedly assuring the viewers that she would definitely find the 1,000-year-old white snake before dark. As time ticked by, the light in the live stream gradually dimmed. The group finally stopped on a relatively flat clearing and decided to camp there for the night. After the tents were set up, problems began to emerge. Why does Chen Meng get to sleep alone in the big tent? The class sports committee member Zhao Jiqiang said in a dissatisfied voice, and the 14 of us have to squeeze into 3 small tents, because I prepared all the gear, Chen Meng said confidently. Besides, girls should get special treatment anyway. What's the big deal if you boys squeeze a little? I noticed Xiacheng wasn't taking part in the argument. He quietly helped the girls set up their tent, then walked off by himself to check his backpack. In the glow of the setting sun, I saw him take something out of his pocket and look at it, then quickly stuff it back in. It was the snake identification card I had secretly slipped into his backpack, printed with the features of various venomous snakes and first aid methods. How do we divide up dinner? Zhang Peng asked in a rough voice. The self-heating hotpot I brought is only enough for 2 people. Everyone, take out all your food and divide it equally, suggested the class monitor. Li Wei. Chen Meng immediately objected. No, I brought premium ingredients. Why should I share them with others? She lifted a bag of imported beef jerky proudly. My dad brought this back from Japan. The argument grew louder and louder, and the live stream camera was casually set aside, so the footage could only capture part of the scene. I saw Xiacheng silently share his food with several girls who hadn't brought enough, while Chen Meng sat in front of her luxury tent, chewing on beef jerky with relish. After it was completely dark, Chen Meng finally ended the live stream. My computer screen went black, and only a faint crackling of electricity remained in the speakers. My phone vibrated with a message from Xiacheng. Huan, are you asleep? I stared at the message for a long time. At this point in my past life, I should have been frantically calling him, begging them to come back quickly, but now, I only sent a simple reply. No. Does your foot still hurt? It's okay. Xiacheng's reply was a little hesitant. It's more remote here than we expected, and the phone signal is very bad. We'll head back tomorrow morning. I could almost see his tightly furrowed brows through the screen. Xiacheng had never been good at lying. Since he said he'd be back tomorrow morning, it meant the current situation had already made him uneasy. Be careful, I replied, then closed my phone. Outside the window, a full moon hung in the night sky, pale as a snake's belly. I opened my notebook and wrote on a new page. Day 1, illegal trespassing, contact with venomous snakes, internal division. After closing the notebook, I opened the computer search bar and typed in Qingfeng mountain snake activity patterns. The very first result made my fingers go cold. On nights of a full moon, snakes are most active. For the morning sunlight stung my eyes. I had actually dozed off in front of the computer, and my neck was stiff as a board. The live stream on the screen had already resumed, and Chen Meng was combing her hair energetically in front of the camera. Good morning, family. I slept super well last night, and today we're definitely going to find the white snake. She turned and shouted toward the tent area. Everyone get up, the sun's already on your butts. A few dissatisfied grumbles came from off camera. Xiacheng appeared at the edge of the frame, dark circles hanging under his eyes, his hair a mess, clearly having had a bad night's sleep. Xiacheng, go get some water from the stream. Chen Meng casually tossed him an empty bottle, her tone like she was ordering a servant around. Xiacheng caught the water bottle, frowning even more tightly. Chen Meng, shouldn't we think about heading back? Last night I heard strange noises outside the tent. Oh, you coward. Chen Meng rolled her eyes dramatically. That was just the sound of the wind blowing through the leaves. There are 20,000 people in the live stream room waiting to see the white snake. If we go back now, how disappointing would that be? I opened the blue notebook and down the time and dialogue. In my previous life, Xiacheng hadn't shown doubts this early. It seemed my absence had indeed changed the course of certain events. The live stream suddenly shook violently, accompanied by Chen Meng's excited scream. Look, what is that? The camera focused on a sunlit rock, and within the crevice, a faint snow-white figure could be seen. My heart suddenly raced. That was an all-white snake, almost translucent in the sunlight, like a piece of jade that could move. 1,000-year-old white snake. I knew it really existed. Chen Meng's voice trembled with excitement. everyone, look, get the live stream to 50,000 likes, and I'll move closer to film it." The barrage instantly exploded. "Oh my god, it's so beautiful." "Danger, don't get any closer. Dream dream, fly bravely on, mom will always be with you." Xia Qing lunged forward and stopped Chen Meng. "Wait, that might be an albino pit viper, highly venomous." Chen Meng impatiently shoved him away. "What do you know? This is a spirit snake, look how beautiful it is." She turned to the camera and made exaggerated expressions. "Guys, the appearance of a white snake means we're blessed with a celestial connection." I quickly flipped open the notes Zhou Yi gave me and found the page on albino snakes. Just as Xia Cheng had said, this was very likely an albino short-tailed viper, whose venom is even more potent than that of an ordinary one. I grabbed my phone and took a picture of the screen. During the live stream, Chen Meng had already taken out that selfie stick and was carefully approaching the rock. The white snake seemed to sense danger, raising its triangular head as its bright red tongue flickered in and out rapidly. "So perfect," Chen Meng exclaimed softly. "This angle is incredible. Turn just a little more." Ignoring Xia Cheng's attempts to stop her, she used the selfie stick to gently prod the snake's tail, trying to make it turn fully toward the camera. Startled, the white snake suddenly drew its body in and took an attacking stance. "Chen Meng, back off," Xia Qing shouted, but it was already too late. The white snake struck like lightning, but its target was not Chen Meng. At some point, Zhangpeng had moved to the other side of the rock, and the snake's fangs pierced his wrist with precision. "Ah!" Zhangpeng's scream tore through the stillness of the forest. He flung his arm wildly, and the white snake was hurled away, quickly disappearing into a crack in the rocks. The live stream chat instantly exploded. "It bit someone. Save him, quick, call the police now." The camera shook violently, but Chen Meng did not immediately go to check on the injured person. Instead, she urgently said to the camera, "Everyone, don't leave. Did you capture the white snake attacking just now? That's absolutely precious footage in the history of live streaming." Xia Cheng had already rushed to Zhang Peng's side. Zhang Peng's face was deathly pale, and a bluish tint had begun spreading around the two tiny tooth marks on his wrist. Xia Qing quickly pulled a bandage from his backpack and tightly tied it around Zhang Peng's upper arm. "We have to get him to the hospital immediately." Xia Cheng's voice was taut. "Who remembers the way back?" "No," Chen Meng stopped them sharply. "The live stream isn't over yet, and we finally found the white snake. Are you crazy?" Xia Qing stared at her in disbelief. Zhang Peng could die. Chen Meng bit her lip, then suddenly lowered her voice. "Don't ruin the shot. The live stream has already crossed 100,000 viewers. Just do a simple treatment first, and later we can." My fingers dug deeply into my palm. In my last life, I had only heard that someone had been bitten, but I never knew Chen Meng could be this cold-hearted. I quickly took screenshots and recorded the screen, saving this crucial evidence. In the live stream, Xia Cheng had already ignored Chen Meng's objections and started treating the wound according to the emergency steps on the snake identification card. He told Zhang Peng to remain still and rinse the wound with clean water, but didn't dare cut it open or suck out the venom, exactly as emphasized in the first aid guide I had secretly slipped him. "We need to carry him back," Xia Qing said, looking around. "A few people, come help make a stretcher." A few boys hesitantly stepped forward, while Chen Meng stood to the side, her expression dark and unreadable. The live stream audience had already exploded, and the barrage of comments was all condemning her cold-hearted behavior. "All right," Chen Meng suddenly put on a worried expression. "Zhangpeng, hang in there, we'll get you back right away." She turned to the camera, her voice choked with tears. "Everyone, something unexpected happened, and today's live stream may have to end early." I let out a cold laugh. That acting was at an award-winning level. Off camera, Zhang Peng's groans grew weaker and weaker, while Xia Qing kept urging them to hurry up. Just then, the skies suddenly darkened. A dull rumble of thunder came from afar, and the mountain wind picked up abruptly, rustling the leaves violently. "It's going to rain," class monitor Li Wei exclaimed. "We need to find somewhere to take cover." Chen Meng's eyes lit up instead. "Wait, before a heavy rain, snakes come out of their holes en masse. That's the perfect filming opportunity. Do you even have any humanity?" Xia Qing finally exploded. "Zhang Peng is almost done for." The group was clearly split into two factions. Those led by Xia Qing insisted on evacuating immediately, while Chen Meng's loyal followers hesitated. Amid the arguing, the first raindrop had already fallen. I closed the live stream and quickly dialed the Nature Reserve Management Office. "Hello, Qingfeng Mountain Reserve. I found people live streaming in the restricted area on the south slope. someone was just bitten by an albino venomous snake, and the situation is critical. I tried to keep my voice steady. They're probably in the rocky area upstream of the stream. Thank you for your report. We will dispatch a rescue team immediately. The person on the other end paused for a moment. May I ask who you are? I hung up without answering. Outside the window, raindrops began pelting the glass with a patter, like some kind of ominous sign. I opened the blue notebook and carefully recorded today's events in detail: the white snake, the bite, Chen Meng's cold-blooded reaction, the approaching torrential rain. Then I opened my phone's photo album to check the screenshots and screen recording I had just saved. Chen Meng's scene of blocking the rescue was clearly visible, and her ferocious expression at the time was completely unlike her usual sweet image. The rain grew heavier and heavier, the sky dark and ink-black. I reopened the live stream platform, only to find that Chen Meng's live stream room had already been closed. With the final frame frozen on a chaotic rainy scene, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Xia Cheng. Huan, something's happened. Zhang Peng was bitten by a venomous snake. We're trying to find a way back. The signal is very poor, so we may be out of contact for a while. I stared at the message for a long time, then replied, where exactly are you now? What landmarks are nearby? After the message was sent, it showed, read, but there was no reply for a long time. 5 minutes later, a new message popped up. Upstream along the stream, there's a large patch of white rocks shaped like a snake's head. The torrential rain washed out the road we came by, so we may have to take another route. Chen Meng says she knows a shortcut. My blood froze instantly. In my previous life, they had taken a shortcut and ended up straying deep into the snake den. I hurriedly replied, don't take any shortcut, stay where you are and wait for rescue, but the message still showed, unread. I tried calling Xia Cheng's phone, only to hear a cold automated voice. The number you have dialed is not in service area. The rain sounded like drums as I stood by the window, watching the blurred world outside. Lightning tore through the sky, and in an instant illuminated my blue notebook. The newest line on it looked especially glaring in the flash of light. They got lost. 5. The sound of rain battering the window frame was like countless tiny claws scratching at the glass. I sat in front of the computer, repeatedly refreshing Chen Meng's social account, but since the live stream was interrupted, there had been no updates. On the TV, the local news was broadcasting an emergency weather forecast. Due to severe convective weather, Qingfeng Mountain area will experience persistent heavy rainfall, and some areas may be prone to landslides and mudslides. I picked up my phone, and Xia Cheng's last message was still from 4 hours ago. I tried calling, but all I got was the cold automated prompt, the number is not in service. Outside, the rain was getting heavier and heavier, and the sky was so overcast it felt as if night had arrived early. I spread the blue notebook open on the desk, constantly adding new information and speculations. Based on my memories from my previous life, they should be trapped in a concave area upstream of the creek valley, surrounded by cliffs on 3 sides, with the only exit blocked by a mudslide. My phone suddenly vibrated, and an unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Hello, I answered the phone, my heartbeat quickening. Yu Huan, this is Zhou Yi. The voice on the other end crackled with static. The information you provided yesterday was very accurate. The patrol team has already found traces of the intruders, but the heavy rain has hampered the search and rescue effort. I gripped the phone tightly. Are they safe? We're not sure yet. Zhou Yi paused for a moment. There's something strange. The patrol team found a section of fencing on the south slope that had been tampered with, but based on the location you described, they should have entered from the north slope. I frowned. In my previous life, they had indeed entered from the north slope, but this time, thank you for the information, I said softly. If there's any new news, Yu Huan. Zhou Yi suddenly interrupted me. Why are you so concerned about this matter? Both ends of the phone fell silent at the same time, with only the sound of rain and static echoing in my ears. How was I supposed to explain? Tell him I had come back to be reborn and take revenge. Tell him I knew most of them would not survive. Just worried about a classmate. In the end, I chose the lie closest to the truth. Zhou Yi seemed like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just sighed. Stay in touch. After hanging up, I turned on the computer and searched for a topographic map of Qingfeng Mountain. If Chen Meng had chosen a different entrance this time, then the place where they were trapped might also be different from the one in my previous life. My fingers slid across the map and finally stopped on a blue marker on the south slope, Snake Valley, with a tiny skull icon beside it. The phone suddenly rang with a piercing ringtone. and Xia Cheng's name popped up. I took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. Huan. Xia Cheng's voice came in fits and starts, mixed with the sound of rain and static. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Where are you? I tried to keep my voice steady. I don't know. Somewhere in the valley on the south slope. The road was blocked by a landslide. The signal kept cutting in and out. Zhang Peng's condition has worsened. Chen Meng, she's gone crazy. A fierce argument could be heard in the background, and Chen Meng's shrill voice pierced through the static. Give me back the phone. Who told you to contact them without permission? Huan Yuan, help us call the police. Xia Cheng's voice suddenly became clear. Tell the rescue team we're in a valley shaped like a horseshoe. There are lots of snakes. After a cry of pain, chaos broke out on the other end of the line, followed by Chen Meng's hysterical scream. You ruined everything. Do you know how precious this footage is? It's all over now. The call was suddenly cut off. I stared at the phone screen, which showed a call duration of 1 minute and 47 seconds. In my previous life, Xia Cheng had never made this call. Back then, I had been busy trying to persuade them to come back, and this time, I had become their only person to turn to for help. I slowly put down my phone and did not immediately dial for rescue. The sound of raindrops tapping against the window seemed to turn into a countdown, each drop urging me to make a decision. The blue notebook lay open in front of me. I flipped to the latest page and wrote, Xia Cheng distress call, 17:23. Then I picked up my phone, not to call the rescue team, but to send Zhou Yi a message. I heard there's a horseshoe-shaped valley on the south slope, with lots of snakes. That might be where they're trapped. After sending the message, I turned off my phone and walked to the window. Rainwater wound down the glass like countless transparent snakes. I closed my eyes, and Xia Cheng's final screams on the phone echoed in my ears. This time, I choose to remain silent. A TV news broadcast suddenly cut in with an emergency report. A massive landslide has occurred on the south slope of Qingfeng Mountain. Forest rangers reported signs of a suspected student expedition team, but rescue efforts are hampered by severe weather. I reopened my phone, and the class group chat had already exploded, with dozens of unread messages popping up non-stop. Most were asking about Chen Meng and the other's situation, along with a few messages tagging me. You Huan, weren't you supposed to go with Chen Meng and the others? I heard someone got bitten by a snake. Is that true? I replied. I twisted my ankle and couldn't make it. I'm really worried about them. Then I opened Chen Meng's moments, and the latest update was still that photo of her gear lineup from before she set out yesterday. The comments were full of concerned questions from fans, and Chen Meng hadn't replied to a single one. It was completely dark by then. The rain had eased a little, but it still kept falling non-stop. I boiled a bowl of instant noodles and forced myself to eat it. On the TV, the news channel had started replaying footage of the landslide on Qifeng Mountain in a loop. Vast stretches of hillside collapsing like melting chocolate, trees toppling over, roads buried. The phone rang again. It was another unknown number. Classmate Yu Huan, a stern male voice said. I'm Captain Wang from the Qifeng Mountain Rescue Command Center. I'd like to ask you about a few things. I sat up straight. Please go ahead. We received a report that 15 students from your class may be trapped on the south slope of Qingfeng Mountain. Are you aware of this activity? Not really, I said softly. Chen Meng organized it. I didn't take part because of a foot injury. Chen Meng, the other person, seemed to be taking notes. Can you provide more information about the participants, especially their health conditions? I truthfully informed them that Zhang Peng had been bitten by a venomous snake and suggested that they contact Zhou Yi for more professional advice. After hanging up, I turned on the computer and searched for Snake Valley Qingfeng Mountain. A few old news reports popped up. Albinistic pit viper group reappears in Snake Valley of Qingfeng Mountain. Hiker trespasses into Snake Valley and is attacked by snakes. Expert. Snakes are most aggressive around the full moon. Nature reserve reminder. The terrain in Snake Valley is complex. Rescue is difficult in emergencies. I looked up at the calendar. Today happened to be the 15th day of the lunar month, the night of the full moon. My phone vibrated. Zhou Yi sent me a photo. An aerial shot taken by the rescue team above the valley. In the blurry image, several colorful little dots were gathered on a protruding rock, surrounded by muddy water. At one corner of the photo, something white flashed by. We found them, but the helicopter can't land in the heavy rain. The rescue team is trying to approach from the ground. Zhou Yi's message followed closely behind. The clue you provided was very helpful. I zoomed in on the photo. Those colored specks should be their tents and clothes. The white thing. I adjusted the contrast and made out, faintly, A white snake coiled along the edge of the rock, raising its head toward the camera. "Be careful of the white snake," I replied. "It might be a white albino short-tailed viper, highly venomous." Zhou Yi's reply was unexpected. "That's not a snake, it's—" "Never mind, I'll say more once it's confirmed. Take care." I turned off my phone and went back to the window. In the curtain of rain, a deathly pale moon occasionally showed its face through a gap in the clouds, only to be swallowed up again in an instant. I imagined what was happening in the valley right now. 15 people squeezed into a soaked tent, with hunger, fear, and anger constantly fermenting. In my previous life, Chen Meng's body was found in a shallow pit, with live streaming equipment scattered around her. The autopsy report showed that she died of snake venom and hypothermia, but there were multiple signs of man-made injuries on her body. At the time, the media widely reported this youth tragedy, and no one questioned the source of those injuries. I opened the blue notebook and began recording today's findings and actions. The tip of my pen scratched softly across the paper. The rain outside the window was gradually fading, but thunder still rolled across the sky from time to time in the distance. The handwriting in the notebook looked especially clear under the desk lamp. 1830, confirmed that they were trapped in Snake Valley. 1915, rescue operations blocked. 2000, moonrise. Finally, I wrote down tomorrow's date and closed the notebook. I knew better than anyone what would happen tonight in Snake Valley, but this time, I was just an observer. 6. The morning sunlight pierced through the clouds, and I suddenly jolted awake from my chair. The computer screen was still lit, showing Chen Meng's social media page. Still no updates. On the TV news, the anchor was reporting in a professional, calm tone. Search and rescue operations on Qingfeng Mountain have made progress as the weather has improved. A drone has spotted traces of the student expedition team in Snake Valley, but due to the complex terrain, ground rescue will still take time. I rubbed my sore neck and picked up my phone. At 3 a.m., Zhou Yi had sent a message. "I found them, 8 survivors. The situation isn't good, 8 people. In my previous life, the final number of survivors was 5, which meant the butterfly effect really had changed the trajectory of certain events." I replied, "Do you need any information from me?" As soon as I sent the message, the phone rang, the screen flashed with the 3 words, "Xia Cheng," and my heartbeat suddenly quickened. "Huan." Xia Cheng's voice was so hoarse it was barely recognizable. "We are still alive." Amid the background noise came waves of sobbing and groaning. I tightened my grip on the phone. "How is Zhangpeng?" "He's dead." Xia Cheng's voice was numb and hollow. "And Li Ming and Wang Hao, they ate poisonous mushrooms." "Chen Meng, His voice was suddenly cut off by a burst of commotion. "Xia Cheng," I called out. "What happened?" A fierce argument came from the other end of the phone, followed by Chen Meng's hysterical scream. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't insisted on looking for some rescue team, they wouldn't have eaten random things. It was clearly you who hid the public food." A girl cried back in tears. "I saw cookies in your backpack with my own eyes." After a bout of struggling, Chen Meng's voice suddenly turned sweet and artificial. "Everyone, we're facing some difficulties right now, but the expedition is still continuing. Just now it was, The phone seemed to have been dropped to the ground, producing a harsh screeching noise, and then the calls suddenly cut off. I stared at the phone screen, which showed a call duration of 1 minute 12 seconds. In my previous life, Chen Meng also went missing after an argument like this. At the time, reports said she had gone alone to seek rescue, but the place where her body was found was deep inside a snake den. I opened the computer and searched for Qingfeng Mountain poisonous mushrooms, and a large number of images and warning messages immediately popped up. The most eye-catching one was a bright red umbrella-shaped mushroom, labeled highly toxic, hallucinogenic, lethal. This was exactly what the 2 boys in the photo were holding. In my previous life, they hadn't touched these mushrooms because Chen Meng was still controlling the food distribution at the time. The phone rang again. It was Zhou Yi. "Yu Huan, we've located their exact position." His voice was weary. "The situation is more complicated than we thought. They've strayed into a snake breeding ground, and right now it's mating season. The snakes are extremely aggressive." Breeding ground. I repeated the words, and in my mind surfaced the terrifying scene from the news in my past life. Snake eggs densely packed across the cave floor, like piles of translucent pearls. "There's one more thing." Zhou Yi hesitated. "That's Xie Qing, you know. How is he doing?" I froze for a moment. "Why do you ask?" "A drone captured a boy with bite marks on his arm, but he refused treatment and insisted on going to find someone. my fingers unconsciously tightened around the phone case. In my previous life, Xia Cheng was one of the survivors, but after he came back, he was severely traumatized and hardly spoke at all. In the news photo, his arm was indeed wrapped in bandages. He just called me. I said softly. He sounded in very bad shape. The rescue team is expected to reach their location within 3 hours. Zhou Yi paused. Yu Huan, why do you know so much about these classmates? Outside the window, the sunlight had completely driven away the clouds, shining on the blue notebook on the desk. I opened to the latest page, where last night's speculations and this morning's phone call were recorded. Just a hunch. That was how I finally answered. Zhou Yi seemed to want to say something, but in the end he only sighed. Take care. After hanging up, I turned on the TV and switched it to the local news channel. The screen was showing drone footage, a valley half buried by a mudslide, with several colorful tents pitched haphazardly on a protruding rock. The camera zoomed in, and several tiny figures were moving around. One of them was wearing a striking pink jacket, undoubtedly Chen Meng. The news ticker scrolled. Latest news on the missing students from Qingfeng Mountain. Of the 15 people, 7 have been confirmed safe, 2 are dead, and 6 remain unaccounted for. I frowned. Zhou Yi said 8 people had survived, but the news said 7 were safe. What did the discrepancy between them mean? My phone vibrated, and the class group chat had already exploded. The homeroom teacher sent 3 announcements in a row. All students, please remain calm and do not spread unverified information. Parents, please contact the school office for the latest updates. Yu Huan, please report to the principal's office immediately. I stared at the last message, my heart racing. In my previous life, I was summoned for questioning because I tried to stop them, but this time I clearly hadn't done anything. In the principal's office, the atmosphere was so tense it felt like it could be wrung with water. The principal, the grade director, and our homeroom teacher sat around the conference table, opposite Chen Meng's parents, her father in a suit and tie, his fingers drumming on the tabletop non-stop, her mother impeccably made up, with swollen red eyes. Yu Huan, the principal, adjusted his glasses. We've learned that you were one of the first people to know about this expedition plan. I nodded, placing my hands neatly on my knees. Chen Meng suggested it in the class group chat, and a lot of people signed up, but you didn't go in the end. The grade director's sharp gaze shot at me through his glasses. I twisted my ankle. I pointed at my right foot, which was still wrapped in a bandage. The doctor advised me to rest. Chen Meng's father suddenly spoke, his voice cold and hard. My daughter said it was you who encouraged them to go to Snake Cave. I almost laughed out loud. In my previous life, I tried desperately to stop it. In this life, I didn't do anything, and Chen Meng still managed to dump the blame on me. Looks like her ability to improvise on the spot is even stronger than I imagined. Uncle, Auntie, I said, looking straight at them, my voice calm. When Chen Meng made the suggestion in the group chat, I only said, that sounds interesting, and then reminded everyone to be safe. The whole class can testify to that. The homeroom teacher nodded. That's right. Later, classmate Yu Huan dropped out of the event because of a foot injury. Chen Meng's mother suddenly burst into sobs. My Meng, she's so innocent and kind-hearted. If anything happened to her, I held back the urge to roll my eyes. Pure and kind-hearted. That woman who watched her classmate get bitten by a snake for the sake of live streaming effects. Classmate Yu Huan, the principal said sternly, if you remember any useful information, please tell us immediately. Right now, the rescue team is. His words were interrupted by a rapid knocking at the door. The director of the school office rushed in a panic. Latest news, the rescue team has already found them. Everyone stood up. Chen Meng's father snatched the school office director's phone, which displayed a short message. 9 survivors found, 3 confirmed dead, 3 missing. Chen Meng is temporarily listed as missing. Chen Meng's mother let out a shrill scream and collapsed into the chair. I silently counted the numbers. 8 people according to Zhou Yi, 7 according to the news, and now 9. Behind this chaotic information, how many people had actually survived? After leaving the principal's office, I ran into Xia Cheng's parents in the hallway. His mother's eyes were swollen red, his father's face dark with anger. As we brushed past each other, I heard his father say, through gritted teeth, it's all that Chen Meng's fault. When I walked out of the school gate, the sunlight stabbed at my eyes. My phone vibrated. It was a photo from Zhou Yi. The rescue team had finally arrived at the valley, and a group of ragged students were being helped toward the ambulance. I enlarged the picture, searching for Xia Cheng's figure. At the edge of the photo, a boy was struggling to make his way back into the valley. with 2 rescuers holding him back tightly. Even though the image was blurry, I could tell it was Xie Cheng. His lips were moving as if he were shouting something. Zhou Yi's next message explained the scene. He wanted to go back to find Chen Meng and said she was trapped in a cave. I replied, "Did you find her?" The cave entrance was blocked by a landslide, and there were signs of a snake swarm inside. It was too dangerous. I didn't reply. I looked up toward the distant Qingfeng mountain. Bathed in sunlight, it looked peaceful and beautiful, showing no sign at all that it had already claimed multiple lives. Back home, I turned on the computer to check the latest news. Someone on the local forum had already posted an exposé, with a shocking title, "Inside the Qingfeng Mountain Tragedy, School Beauty Killed Her Classmates for a Live Stream." The post read, "According to a survivor, Chen Meng, for the sake of the live stream effect, stopped her companions from rescuing a classmate who had been bitten by a snake, and also hoarded food, causing multiple people to mistakenly eat poisonous mushrooms. In the end, she entered the snake's nest alone to find the right angle, triggering a cave-in." Attached below the post were a few blurry screenshots, exactly the ones I had saved from the live stream. Chen Meng stopping Xie Cheng from saving Zhang Peng, but the person who posted it wasn't me. The phone rang. It was the class monitor, Li Wei, and her name appeared on the list of survivors, Yu Huan. Her voice was so weak it was almost inaudible. "We made it back, Li Wei. Are you okay?" I was genuinely surprised. In my previous life, she hadn't survived. "Xie Cheng, he's gone crazy." Li Wei's voice trembled. Chen Meng pushed him toward the snake swarm. We all saw it, but he still wanted to save her. My blood instantly froze. In my previous life, Chen Meng's body bore signs of a struggle, but no one knew what had happened. Now, the pieces were gradually falling into place. How many people are left?" I asked softly. A long silence came from the other end of the phone, followed by stifled sobbing. "There were 15 when we went. Now, 6 survivors, 1 more than in my previous life." The butterfly effect. After hanging up the phone, I opened the blue notebook and wrote on the latest page, "Survivors, Xie Cheng, Li Wei, Zhao Jiqiang, Sun Ting, Lu Yang, Wu Sini, dead, Zhang Peng, Li Ming, Wang Hao, missing, Chen Meng, Lin Xiaoxiao, Ma Tianyu, Zhou Hao." Then I flipped to the very front of the notebook, where I had pasted screenshots of Chen Meng proposing the adventure in the class group chat, along with her emphatic assurances that it was safe. These, together with the live stream recording I had saved, would become the strongest evidence. Outside the window, the sun was setting, dyeing the entire room blood red. The TV news had begun airing footage from the rescue scene, bodies on stretchers covered with white sheets, the dazed eyes of survivors, parents crying out in anguish. My phone lit up, and Zhou Yi sent the last message, "The cave is too dangerous. Search and rescue is suspended tonight. Tomorrow I'll go down myself to take a look. P.S. Are you okay?" I looked at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard for a long time, and finally replied, "I'm fine, stay safe, and don't become her next victim." After sending that message, I turned off my phone and looked out at Qingfeng Mountain. Night had fallen, and the moon had risen again, pale as the belly of a snake. Deep in the cave, half buried by the mudslide, Chen Meng might still be alive, enduring the longest night of her life, and I, at last, could get a good night's sleep. 7. At exactly midnight, I was jolted awake by my phone vibrating. Zhou Yi's name flashed on the screen, and I answered immediately. "Yu Huan." Zhou Yi's voice was kept very low, the background filled with the howling wind. "We found the cave entrance, but something is not right." I was instantly awake and turned on the bedside lamp. "What's wrong?" "There are drag marks and bloodstains at the cave entrance, and also this." A rustling sound came through the phone, followed by Zhou Yi's sharp intake of breath. "A cell phone. The screen is shattered, but it's still recording video." My heart suddenly raced. "Is it Chen Meng's?" "I'm not sure. It needs a password to unlock." "But," Zhou Yi's voice suddenly turned alert. "Wait, there seems to be a sound in the cave." There was a faint noise on the other end of the phone, like some kind of liquid dripping, or like a snake hissing. A chill ran down my back. "Zhou Yi," I called out, "are you okay?" There was no response, only intermittent static and faint human sobbing. Then the call suddenly ended. I sat on the bed, staring at my phone's black screen, my fingers trembling slightly. Outside the window, a full moon hung high in the sky, its pale light slipping through the crack in the curtains and drawing a cold, sharp line across the floor. The computer suddenly chimed with a ding. I rushed to the desk, on the screen was a video link. Sent from an unfamiliar account, with only 2 characters in the title, "Help." I clicked the link, the footage shook violently, and the lighting was extremely dim. I could only vaguely make out that it was a narrow cave, heavy breathing and sobbing intertwined, and then came Chen Meng's voice, but it was nothing like her usual sweet tone. Instead, it was hoarse, like sandpaper scraping against something. "Family members, I'm still live streaming." The image suddenly brightened a little, as if the phone flashlight had been turned on. Chen Meng's face appeared in the camera, as pale as a ghost, her makeup smeared into a mess, with a streak of blood on her right cheek. Behind her, several figures were curled up, and I recognized Xia Cheng and Lin Xiaoxiao among them. "We are trapped." Chen Meng's voice was halting. "There are snakes everywhere outside. Please, call the police." The camera turned toward the cave entrance, and my stomach convulsed. Countless snake shadows writhed under the moonlight, like black ropes intertwining into a deathly net. Several snakes held their heads high, their tongues flicking rapidly, as if savoring the fear in the air. Song Li could no longer contain himself and punched Lin Qingqing square on the nose. "Get lost." Chen Meng shoved him aside violently. "This is the only way to call for help." Xia Cheng stumbled back and slammed into the rock wall, startling a viper coiled there. The snake's body shot out like a spring. Xia Cheng narrowly dodged, and the snake's fangs grazed his arm. "Are you out of your mind?" Xia Cheng growled in a low voice, "trying to get us all killed." Chen Meng paid no heed and continued crying into the camera. "The rescue team abandoned us. Now only the people in the live stream can save me, please." The bullet comments scrolled frantically, but most were useless. "Hang in there," and "I'm scared," with the occasional practical suggestion mixed in. Chen Meng's eyes were fixed dead on the steadily rising viewer count, and a twisted smile actually appeared at the corners of her mouth. 50,000 people are watching," she murmured. "This time I'm really going to blow up." Lin Xiaoxiao suddenly screamed, "Chen Meng, your backpack is moving." The camera suddenly swung toward the pink-branded backpack, and sure enough, it was trembling slightly. Chen Meng's face turned deathly pale, and she used a branch to prod the backpack from a distance. Several small snakes slid out from inside, one of them glaringly white snake. Chen Meng's voice suddenly turned strange. "The 1,000-year white snake has come to carry me to immortality." She even reached out to touch the white snake, but Xia Cheng grabbed her at once. "That's an albino viper. It's highly venomous." Just then, Ma Tianyu, the boy who had had a crush on Chen Meng for 3 years, suddenly rushed out from deep inside the cave. "Snakes. There are snakes behind us too." The image shook violently, capturing the terrifying scene at the other end of the cave. Countless snake shadows surged out from the cracks in the rock like a black tide. Ma Tianyu swung the branch wildly, trying to carve out a path to escape. "Tianyu, save me!" Chen Meng suddenly screamed, reaching out toward Ma Tianyu. Without hesitation, Ma Tianyu turned to pull her, and in that split second, Chen Meng made a move that froze my blood. She suddenly shoved Ma Tianyu toward the swarm of snakes, using the force to leap backward. "No!" Xia Cheng's roar mingled with the hissing of the snake swarm. The moment Ma Tianyu toppled into the pile of snakes, the scene descended into utter chaos. Screams, cries, and the hissing of snakes intertwined into a symphony from hell. The camera caught Ma Tianyu's contorted face. 2 snakes were already draped around his neck like a grotesque necklace. "Run!" Xia Cheng grabbed Lin Xiaoxiao and another boy, and dashed toward the brief passageway Ma Tianyu had cleared. With his body, Chen Meng, however, stood still, her phone still held up in front of her chest, the camera inexplicably aimed at herself. Her expression gradually changed from fear into a strange calm, and the corners of her mouth even lifted slightly. "Guys, this is the real adventure," she said softly, her voice suddenly regaining its usual sweetness. "Remember to follow me." A black and yellow snake slowly poked its head out from behind her shoulder. Chen Meng seemed to sense it, but she didn't move, only flashing her signature sweet smile at the camera. The snake's head struck suddenly, its fangs piercing her snow-white neck. The phone fell to the ground, and the image shifted to an upward angle. Chen Meng's falling figure, the countless snake shadows hanging down from the cave ceiling, and her final words, "Worth it, 100,000 likes." Then the screen suddenly flipped, and Xia Cheng's face appeared in the frame. He grabbed the phone and frantically ran toward the cave entrance. The footage shook violently, catching the moment. Lin Xiaoxiao tripped as a snake wound around her ankle. Xia Cheng hesitated for a second, then turned back to save her. "Xia Cheng, don't worry about me, Lin Xiaoxiao cried as she threw herself toward the pursuing snakes. Go find help. In the end, Xia Qing gritted his teeth and kept running. The footage passed through a patch of bushes and suddenly opened up. Under the moonlight, Xia Cheng was covered in blood, his arms swollen and purple, trembling. He took the phone and aimed the camera at his own face. Huan, he suddenly said to the camera. As if he knew I was watching, I'm sorry. Then the video ended. I sat in front of the computer, my hands ice cold, a lump of lead lodged in my stomach. The screen automatically switched to the live stream platform homepage, and Chen Meng's account was still pinned in a hot spot. The title had already changed to A True Account of the Campus Belle's Peril in the Snake Pit, and the viewer count had broken 200,000. My phone suddenly rang. It was Xia Cheng's number. I took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. Huan, Xia Cheng's voice was so weak it was almost inaudible. In the background were howling winds and the hissing of snakes. I was wrong. I tightened my grip on the phone and said nothing. Chen Meng, she knew this route was dangerous all along, Xia Cheng said haltingly. Her cousin isn't some expert at all. She just did it for the live stream. A cry of pain came from the other end of the line, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. The hiss of snakes grew closer and closer, and Xia Cheng's breathing became increasingly heavy and ragged. Huan, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you back then. His voice began to blur. Actually, a burst of violent hissing drowned out his words, followed by a blood-curdling scream. The call hadn't been disconnected. I could clearly hear the rustling sounds of the snakes moving, and the sound of some liquid dripping. 5 minutes later, when I was sure only the sound of snakes remained on the other end of the line, I pressed the save recording button, then dialed the rescue team. There are survivors in the snake cave on Qingfeng Mountain. My voice was eerily calm. The exact coordinates are 116, 42° east longitude, 27, 38° north latitude, near a cave entrance facing south. After hanging up, I opened the blue notebook and flipped to the pages dedicated to Xia Cheng and Chen Meng. Beside Xia Cheng's name, I drew a small cross. Beside Chen Meng's name, I drew a snake outside the window. The moon was obscured by dark clouds, and the room fell into darkness. Just before the computer screen automatically went into sleep mode, the last thing it illuminated was a line of text in the notebook. This time, I choose silence. 8. The morning mist over Qingfeng Mountain had not yet dispersed when the TV news began continuously airing the rescue results. I sat on the sofa, holding a cup of hot milk, expressionlessly watching the pixelated footage on the screen, the bodies covered with white sheets on stretchers, the dazed survivors in the ambulance, and the parents who cried themselves unconscious. Final confirmation, among the 15 students, 7 are dead, 5 are injured, and only 3 are safe and sound. The news anchor's voice carried a deliberate heaviness. According to the survivors, the organizer, Chen Meng, repeatedly put her classmates in dangerous situations for the sake of the live stream effect. The doorbell suddenly rang. Through the peephole, I saw Zhou Yi standing outside, his uniform covered in mud and heavy dark circles under his eyes. Are you okay? He asked as soon as he came in, his voice so hoarse it was almost impossible to hear. I nodded and handed him a cup of hot tea. Zhou Yi had several scrapes on his hands, and his right wrist was wrapped in a bandage. We found Xia Cheng. He looked straight into my eyes, less than 50 meters from the cave entrance. My fingers unconsciously rubbed the edge of the cup. Was he in pain? Zhou Yi shook his head. The snake venom caused cardiac arrest. It should have been quick. He hesitated for a moment. He was clutching his phone tightly in his hand, and the screen was open to the chat interface between you and him. I stood up and walked to the desk, took the blue notebook from the drawer, and turned to the page where I had recorded Xia Cheng's final phone call. Zhou Yi's gaze fell on the neatly written notes, and he frowned slightly. You Huan, he chose his words carefully, you knew something would happen a long time ago, didn't you? Outside the window, a sparrow landed on the balcony railing and tilted its head to look at us. I gently closed my notebook and did not answer directly. The school is holding a memorial service this afternoon. Are you going? Zhou Yi seemed like he wanted to say something, but in the end he only let out a sigh. I have to go back to the reserve to write a report. By the way, he pulled a USB drive from his pocket. This is a copy of the official accident report. Maybe it'll be useful to you. The USB drive was warm, carrying his body heat. I held it in my hand and nodded. The school auditorium was solemnly decorated with black and white drapes. 15 photos were placed on the lectern, and 7 of them had already been set in black frames. Chen Meng's photo was placed right in the center. it was her most prized glamour shot, long hair flowing, a sweet smile, with not the slightest trace of the demon who had pushed her. Classmates into the snake pit. I was wearing a simple black dress, standing at the very end of the class line. From the front row came waves of sobbing, and our homeroom teacher, with red-rimmed eyes, was checking names off the roster. Yu Huan, when she called my name, her voice was noticeably gentler. Are you okay? I'm fine, thank you, teacher, I answered softly, lowering my head just enough to let a strand of hair fall over my eyes. The principal's somber eulogy, the teacher representative's choked speech, the student representative's memories, everything was exactly the same as in my last life, except this time, I was no longer the one being blamed, but a lucky absentee. Although Chen Meng made mistakes, she paid with her life. The principal's voice echoed through the auditorium. Let us remember the good side of her. Good side, my ass. An abrupt voice cut him off. Everyone turned toward the source of the sound. Zhao Jiqiang, one of the survivors, standing in the third row with a cane, fresh scars still visible on his face. She got Xia Qing killed. She got Ma Tianyu killed. The auditorium instantly erupted into unrest. The homeroom teacher hurried forward to calm things down, but Zhao Jiqiang had already lost control. She pushed Ma Tianyu toward the snake pack just to live stream. I saw it with my own eyes. Xia Cheng was only trying to save Lin Xiaoxiao. His voice choked up, and his cane fell to the floor with a loud clatter. Several boys stepped up to help support him, and someone began cursing Chen Meng's name in a low voice. I silently took out my phone and turned on the recording function. In my previous life, these truths were suppressed by the school and the parents working together, and beautified into a so-called unfortunate accident, but now, I was going to let everyone know Chen Meng's true colors. After the memorial service ended, the students gathered in twos and threes, and the topic quickly shifted from mourning to accusations. Chen Meng has always been so fake, a girl in the class said softly. At the last sports meet, she pretended to be injured, but she actually just didn't want to take part in the relay race. She's never paid back the money she borrowed from me. Another boy chimed in. She even threatened me not to tell anyone. She was stringing along several boys at the same time, and Xia Cheng was only one of them. I listened quietly, nodding occasionally, and putting on the right expression of surprise or sudden realization. Some of the information was true, some of it was obviously embellished, but it all pointed in the same direction. After Chen Meng's death, her friends were eager to distance themselves from her. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Zhou Yi. Check the news. I opened the link he sent, and a bombshell report had already shot to the top of the trending list. School beauty snake pit live stream shows video of her killing a classmate exposed. The video was obviously clipped from some live streaming platform. The image quality was blurry, but the key content was clearly visible. Chen Meng stopping Xia Cheng from saving Zhangpeng, Chen Meng secretly hoarding food, and, most deadly of all, the moment she pushed Ma Tianyu toward the snake swarm. The comment section had already exploded. Is this even a school bell? She's clearly a venomous serpent. Those classmates died so unjustly. Who said she was pure and kind in the first place? Are they blind? I turned off my phone, the corners of my mouth lifting slightly. In my previous life, this video had been suppressed by Chen Meng's parents at great expense, but now it was spreading like a virus, impossible to cover up anymore. 3 days later was Xia Cheng's funeral. I wore an all-white outfit, carrying a blue notebook and a white rose. The funeral was held in a small church, and more people attended than expected. Many were strangers who had come after seeing the news to pay their respects. Xia Cheng's parents stood beside the coffin, their faces haggard. When his mother saw me, a complicated look flickered in her eyes. In my previous life, she had publicly cursed me as a murderer, but now she simply nodded lightly. Yu Huan, a cold voice came from behind me. I turned around and saw Chen Meng's parents standing there, their faces as dark as the sky before a storm. Are you satisfied now? I blinked and put on a puzzled look. What do you mean, uncle and auntie? Don't play dumb. Chen Meng's father roared in a low voice. Only you could have recorded that video. You've always been jealous of Meng Meng. Now that she's dead, are you happy? The nearby guests began to glance over. Xia Cheng's mother suddenly walked over and stood in front of me. Mr. Zhang, please respect my son's funeral. Mrs. Xia, you don't understand. Chen Meng's mother sobbed. It was this girl who got our Meng Meng killed, and now she's slandering her. Slandering? I interrupted softly, taking out my phone from my bag. Auntie, do you want to see what your daughter did? Before she could answer, I had already opened the video. the scene of Chen Meng pushing Ma Tianyu toward the snake swarm was clearly displayed before everyone. The church instantly fell silent, with only the hissing of the snakes in the video and Chen Meng's words, "Worth it, 100,000 likes." Chen Meng's father's face turned from red to pale, and he suddenly reached out to snatch my phone. Xia Cheng's father stopped him with one hand. "Enough. My son risked his life to save the person your daughter harmed, and you still have the face to make a scene here." The scene descended into chaos until the priest stepped in to mediate. The funeral continued, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Chen Meng's parents left in a hurry, and many guests' gazes toward me shifted from confusion to sympathy. After the ceremony ended, several classmates gathered around me, their expressions awkward and guilty. "Yu Huan." Class monitor Li Wei twisted her fingers nervously. "We owe you an apology. If only we had listened to your warning back then." "It's okay," I said softly, my gaze sweeping over each of their faces. "You were all deceived." That sentence seemed to open the floodgates, and the classmates began pouring out their dissatisfaction with Chen Meng and the resentment they had long been holding in. I listened quietly, nodding occasionally, like the most patient of listeners. When I left, I placed the white rose and a note before Xia Cheng's grave. There was only one sentence on the note: "May you open your eyes in your next life." As I turned around, I saw Zhou Yi standing at the entrance to the cemetery, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. He walked over, laid the flowers before Xia Cheng's grave, then stood beside me. "The conservation area has decided to permanently seal off the snake den," he said softly. "They'll put up a warning sign there." I nodded, my gaze falling on Chen Meng's gravestone in the distance. There were a few bouquets of flowers there too, but most had been left by the media and curious passers-by. Very few were from actual classmates and friends. "Yu Huan," Zhou Yi suddenly asked, "if you could do it all over again, what would you do?" Sunlight filtered through the plane tree leaves, casting dappled shadows across his face. Looking at the boy who had never appeared in my life in my previous life, I smiled slightly. "The same." Zhou Yi gave me a deep look, as if trying to read something from my expression. In the end, he just nodded. "I'll take you home." As we walked out of the cemetery gates, a crowd of reporters swarmed around us, long lenses and cameras aimed straight at us. "Yu Huan, as the only person who knew about this and didn't take part in the event, what do you have to say? It's said that you once tried to stop them. Is that true? What do you think of Chen Meng's actions?" I stopped in my tracks, faced the camera, and said with a calm yet sorrowful expression, "I only hope tragedies like this never happen again. I hope everyone remembers that life matters more than likes." That night, the interview was replayed on a loop across major TV stations. My phone was flooded with apology messages and friend requests, and my social media followers skyrocketed overnight. The people who had once bullied me online in my past life were now busy sharing my interview video, tagging it with labels like insightful and clear-headed. I turned off all notifications, opened the last page of the blue notebook, and wrote today's date on it, followed by a small line of text. "Revenge really is a dish best served cold." I closed the notebook and locked it deep inside the drawer. Outside the window, the early summer evening breeze gently brushed the curtains, bringing the fragrance of gardenias from afar. Tomorrow, the sun would rise as usual, and my new life had only just begun. 9. When the mailman's motorcycle stopped in front of my house, I was on the balcony watering a pot of pothos. He held the thick envelope high above his head, and it reflected a dazzling golden light in the sunlight. "Yu Huan, admission letter from a 985 university." His booming voice startled the sparrows in the tree. I dried my hands and took the envelope, my fingertips trembling slightly. The gold-embossed school emblem on the envelope stung my eyes. This was the dream university that had slipped through my fingers in my last life. I opened the seal, and the admission letter with my name printed on it slid out. In the major field, it clearly said, Department of Psychology. My phone started buzzing right away. It was a message from Zhou Yi. "Did you get it?" I took a photo and sent it to him. Less than 3 seconds later, the call came through. "Psychology." His voice carried an unmistakable hint of amusement. "I thought you'd choose biology or wildlife conservation. Understanding human nature is more important than understanding snakes," I said half-jokingly, my fingers gently brushing over the embossed name of the university on the admission letter. "What about you? Has your Tsinghua admission letter arrived?" "It came yesterday." Zhou Yi paused. "My father wants to meet you. He said to thank you for providing the snake behavior data. It was a huge help." I looked out the window. The summer sunlight gilded everything in gold. 3 months had passed, and the Qingfeng Mountain incident had gradually faded from public view. but every so often reporters would still contact me, wanting to learn the inside story. I turned them all down, except for the safety interview about the nature reserve led by Zhou Yi's father. Should I go to the reserve to find him this weekend? I suggested. I'd also like to see the new education center you built. It's settled then. Zhou Yi's voice perked up. I've got a surprise for you. After hanging up, I put the admission letter on my desk, beside the blue notebook that was already closed. Since the funeral ended, I had never opened it again. All the records, evidence, and plans had lost their meaning with Chen Meng and Xie Cheng's departure. Mom came in through the door, her eyes red, holding a delicate little box in her hands. Huan, this is a gift for you. Inside the box was a delicate silver necklace, with a pendant shaped like a finely crafted ginkgo leaf. Mom helped me put it on, her fingers trembling slightly. Mom is really afraid you'll end up like those classmates. I turned around and hugged her, catching the familiar scent of laundry detergent on her. In my last life, after I died, Mom's hair turned white overnight. Now I could feel her tears falling onto my shoulder, warm and real. I'm not going anywhere, Mom, I said softly. I'll be fine, always. On Saturday morning, the sunlight was so bright it didn't seem real. Wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, I stood in front of the new gate to Qingfeng Mountain Nature Reserve. Everything here had changed completely. A brand new visitor center, eye-catching warning signs, and safety education videos scrolling on the electronic screen. Yuhuan, Zhou Yi jogged over from the management office. After not seeing him for 3 months, he had tanned quite a bit, his build was even sturdier, and he'd changed to a new pair of glasses. He was holding 2 safety helmets and handed one to me. Go to the education center first, he asked, his eyes gleaming behind the lenses. I nodded and followed him along a tree-lined path. On both sides of the road stood all kinds of popular science display boards. One of them gave a detailed introduction to the characteristics and dangers of different snake species. Zhou Yi stopped here and pointed to a section of text. This is supplementary material I added based on the information you provided, about aggressive behavior in snakes during the breeding season. I leaned in to look at the text, and there were clear images alongside it. Zhou Yi stood behind me, carrying the scent of sunlight and grass, which somehow made me feel at ease. The education center was a modern 2-story building. At the entrance stood a stone stele engraved with the 8 large characters, revere nature, cherish life. Walking into the lobby, the first thing that met our eyes was a huge electronic wall playing various images of wildlife. This way leads to the newly built safety education exhibition area. Zhou Yi guided me toward the left corridor. Some of the content may feel familiar to you. At the end of the hallway was a semicircular exhibition hall, with a simulated cave model in the center and touch screens all around it. I stepped closer and saw a processed video playing on the screen. It was the edited version of Chen Meng's expedition, with the gory scenes removed and each of their wrong decisions highlighted. This is, I looked at Zhou Yi in surprise. With the family's consent, he explained softly, the materials you provided helped us reconstruct the entire process. As an educational case for safety training, I walked up to one of the screens, where an interactive Q&A session titled, What to Do If You Encounter a Snake, was displayed. When I opened the details, there was a photo of me and Zhou Yi, with the words beside it, special thanks to classmate Yuhuan for her valuable experience. Your father didn't tell me about this part, I said softly, my throat suddenly tightening. Zhou Yi smiled. One of the surprises, he continued showing me around, and finally stopped in front of a glass display case. My breath caught instantly. The case contained a preserved specimen of a white snake, lifelike as it coiled on a branch, with a sign beside it that read, albino short-tailed viper, a rare species from Qingfeng Mountain. This is, my fingers unconsciously pressed against the glass. Not that one. Zhou Yi's voice was very soft. That one disappeared after the accident. This one was found in another area, and it had already died naturally. I stared at the white snake. Its crystal-clear body was perfect under the light, like a jade carving. In my past life, the 1,000-year-old white snake that Chen Meng had been obsessed with had now become an exhibit to warn future generations. There's a second surprise, Zhou Yi said suddenly, gently taking my hand. Come with me. He led me through the staff passage to a small courtyard behind the reserve. There were several single-story buildings here that looked like laboratories, surrounded by all kinds of plants. Zhou Yi took out a key, opened the door of one of them, and signaled for me to go in first. The light in the room was soft, the temperature comfortable, and along the walls stood a row of breeding boxes. Zhou walked to the innermost box and waved me over. Close your eyes, he said. I obediently closed my eyes, hearing the sound of him opening the box, followed by a faint rustling. Something cool touched my wrist. You can look now. I opened my eyes and saw a live white snake coiled around Zhou Yi's wrist. Smaller than the one in the display case, with beautiful pink eyes. I instinctively stepped back half a pace, but Zhou Yi's smile calmed me down. This is Xiaobai, a 2-year-old artificially bred albino corn snake, completely non-venomous, he explained softly, his fingers gently stroking the snake's body. I want to help you rebuild your understanding of snakes. I took a deep breath and slowly reached out my hand. Xiaobai raised its head, its forked tongue flicking out as it curiously explored the scents in the air. Zhou Yi looked at me encouragingly, his gaze warm and firm. You can touch it, he said. It's very gentle. My fingertips lightly touched Xiaobai's body, and it was unexpectedly warm and soft. It did not dodge. Instead, it wound itself around my wrist like a living bracelet. It is beautiful. I was surprised to find that my voice did not tremble. Zhou Yi smiled. Sunlight slanted in through the window, gilding the outline of his figure with a gold rim. I want to tell you that not all snakes are dangerous, and not all white snakes are nightmares. Xiaobai slid gently over my wrist, cool but not icy, soft but not weak. I suddenly understood Zhou Yi's intention. He was helping me complete a ritual of reconciliation with the past. In the evening, we sat on the viewing platform behind the reserve, watching the setting sun turn the entire forested mountain gold. Zhou Yi handed me a cup of hot cocoa, and we sat shoulder to shoulder, neither of us saying a word. We're going to Beijing next month. After a long while, Zhou Yi spoke. Tsinghua and your school are only 2 subway stops apart. I smiled and took a small sip of the hot cocoa, sweet but not cloying. Do you know why I chose psychology? Zhou Yi shook his head, his gaze fixed intently on me. Because I want to figure out. I looked toward the distant mountains. Why some people, even when they know something is dangerous, still chase after illusory things no matter what. For example, Chen Meng chasing traffic, Xia Qing chasing Chen Meng. Zhou Yi hit the nail on the head. I nodded, suddenly feeling a sense of relief. When I said those names, there was no more sharp pain in my heart, only a faint sense of regret. You know, Zhou Yi turned to me. I looked it up, because albino animals lack camouflage. They have a very hard time surviving in the wild. They're either extremely ferocious or extremely gentle. There's no middle ground. The sunset glow spilled over us, stretching our shadows long. Xiaobai stayed quietly in Zhou Yi's feeding box. While we stayed quietly in this moment, each of us thinking about survival, choice, and redemption, Yuhuan, Zhou Yi suddenly said seriously, "Thank you for reporting them back then." I looked at him and found that his eyes were especially bright in the dusk. If it hadn't been for you, more innocent people might have been harmed, he added softly. In the distance, the reserve's end-of-work bell rang, startling a flock of birds into flight. We got up and started walking back, our shadows intertwining behind us. Passing the education center, I saw that the newly installed electronic screen had already begun playing the nighttime safety campaign video. On the screen, my photo flashed by, accompanied by the caption, "Safety first, life is priceless." The Chen Meng incident had been condensed into a 3-minute cautionary case, and the white snake she had desperately chased now lay quietly in a display cabinet, there for people to learn from, reflect on, and grow. Zhou Yi's hand lightly touched mine, tentative. I held his without hesitation, the warmth of our palms pressed together even warmer than the setting sun. Ahead, the streetlights in the protected area lit up one after another, like a string of pearls, guiding us toward a new beginning. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. The educated youth from the city, ignoring my presence, picked up a piece of pig's trotter and placed it in Li Haonan's bowl, cooing in a sweet voice, "Brother Nan, this is too greasy for me to eat. Could you help me peel off the skin?" I slammed my chopsticks down with a sharp crack, and Li Haonan quickly stopped me. "What are you doing? She's a delicate city girl who isn't used to this." I was just helping her peel it. "Is it really worth getting so angry about?" I slapped him right across the face. "No wonder she can't have children. You need to help with that too." Chen Jiqing saw me hitting Li Haonan and started cursing at me. I slapped her backhandedly and said, "I'm teaching my man a lesson. What gives you, a bitch, the right to speak to me?" Chen Jiqing was slapped by me until she cried, tears streaming down like pear blossoms in the rain. Li Haonan was furious, cursing me for my vulgar language. calling me a venomous woman, and saying I was simply not fit to be seen in public. Little do they know, what they are doing now is truly disgraceful and shameless. Brother Haunan, could you come to my house and help me take a look at the stove? Maybe I'm just too clumsy, but I can't seem to get the fire started no matter what. Here we go again. This was the fourth time Chen Jiqing had come to Li Haunan for help. Outside the courtyard, she was wearing the most fashionable floral dress of the moment, her phoenix eyes looking up as if they were in the sky, completely ignoring me as I hung clothes in the yard, her voice sweetly calling out for Li Haunan from the house. Wait for me at home with the meal ready, I'll go take care of her and be back soon. Li Haunan came out of the house and said to me as usual, then, regardless of whether I heard him or not, followed Chen Jiqing and left. Watching Li Haunan's agile and upright figure from behind, I couldn't help but recall the phrase often said by the villagers, Li Haunan is the most handsome young man in the surrounding villages, Su Qingyun is the most discerning girl in the surrounding villages. Su Qingyun is me, because I am plain looking. I married the handsome Li Haunan. People both inside and outside the village, upon seeing us, all say I am fortunate to have married such a handsome husband. Every time I hear their praise, my heart feels as sweet as if I've eaten honey. However, after getting married, I realized that having a husband who is too handsome can also be quite annoying. Every time Li Haunan goes out to work, there is always a group of women staring at him with infatuated eyes, as if they can't wait to strip him naked on the spot and have their way with him. I wanted to scold them with a dark expression, but Li Haunan held my hand and said, if they look at your man, it means you have a man with charm. Just let them look openly. After all, they can only look and not touch. Why are you so angry? Li Haunan seemed to enjoy the admiring gazes of those women, and occasionally, a couple of bold ones would come over to strike up a conversation. Li Haunan would then chat with them, leaving me completely ignored on the side. Whenever I tried to say something, he would respond, don't be like that. They're just asking me about some college entrance exam questions, nothing more. Then, without caring about how I felt, he would eagerly walk over to them right away. After that, he seemed to have timed it perfectly, waiting until I finished the farm work in the field before he returned. Then he approached me eagerly as if presenting a treasure. Look, to thank me, they specially gave me 2 white flour steamed buns. Now do you believe they were just asking me about the college entrance exam questions? How could I believe it? I clearly saw Li Haunan say something, and one of the women giggled shyly. Then she angrily punched Li Haunan in the chest. What kind of test question is this that makes you want to beat your chest? I really doubt whether what Li Haunan told me back then was a lie. Between Li Haunan and me, it was Li Haunan who pursued me. He said I perfectly matched his aesthetic standards and that he had liked me for a long time, asking if I was willing to be in a relationship with him. Having lived for 25 years, it was the first time a handsome guy told me he liked me, and my face immediately flushed as red as a ripe apple, but I still had some self-awareness. How could someone as handsome as him be interested in a leftover woman like me, who has neither a good figure nor a pretty face? He must have been teasing me. I was about to reject him, but I was so nervous that the words I meant to say came out as, okay. By the time I realized what I had said, Li Haunan had already stuffed a handful of peanut brittle into my hand and run off. So, by a twist of fate, we ended up in a relationship. After spending some time together, I realized that Li Haunan is truly a wonderful person, and the key is that he treats me well. If there's anything he can do himself, he never lets me do it. He said, these are all things that men should do. If women do everything, then what are men for? I was deeply moved by his words. Soon, we got married, but not long after the wedding, he seemed like a completely different person. No matter what I asked him to do, he always had a bunch of reasonable excuses to refuse. Not only did he refuse, but he also never turned anyone down. As long as a woman came up to chat with him, no matter what he's doing, he always ends up chatting with that woman. As they chat, they gradually become more intimate, even if it's just touching hands or putting an arm around the shoulder. But it always makes me feel that there's absolutely no sense of boundaries between him and those women. Several times, I've suspected that he married me not because he liked me, but for some other reason. Thought crossed my mind, could it be that he was after my money? After my parents sacrificed themselves in the line of duty, they left me a sum of money. Not long after marrying Li Haunan, I told him about it, but I didn't mention how much money my parents had left me. But just recently, he said his family needed money urgently, so I gave him $500. It seems like it was after I gave him the money that he started messing around with those women who were clinging to him. So, he got my money and couldn't help but reveal his true nature. Right, good, he better not let me find out that this was his plan all along. or I'll definitely skin him alive. But this matter was soon confirmed with the arrival of Chen Jiqing. Chen Jiqing was an educated youth from the city who had come to the countryside. Claiming to experience rural life, she stayed in the commune office arranged by the village chief. On her first day, the village chief and his wife, Aunt Xiao, took her around the village to introduce her to everyone, asking them to look out for her in the future. She was very beautiful, with fair skin, big eyes, and a high nose bridge, like a fairy who had stepped out of a painting. She was also very enthusiastic, bringing a lot of candies with her. She called women aunt or sister, men uncle or brother, and the little kids little brother or little sister. After making the rounds, the entire village had become her family. When she arrived at my house, I was tending the fire and cooking. Li Haonan went out first, and I followed closely behind. I noticed that when Chen Jiqing saw Li Haonan's handsome features, besides being amazed, there was also a flicker of emotion in her eyes, as if they were reuniting after a long separation. I immediately found it strange. Had she known Li Haonan for a long time? I immediately looked at Li Haonan, but there was no expression on his face. How unusual. This was not at all like Li Haonan's style, but after carefully observing these two people back and forth several times, I found nothing else and had to give up. As soon as the village chief saw the two of us come out, he immediately introduced us to Chen Jiqing. After hearing this, Chen Jiqing suddenly looked up at me. Then her eyes visibly trembled, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing, and she began to scrutinize my face carefully. Just as I was growing impatient with her gaze and about to walk away, she suddenly burst into laughter. I was completely baffled, only to see her sticking out her tongue playfully and saying, "Brother, your wife is truly unforgettable at first sight. Standing next to you, she looks like a celestial being from the heavens, while you resemble a blade of grass on the ground." She was blatantly implying that I was ugly and simply not worthy of Li Haonan. I found it even more puzzling. Her words clearly indicated that she had harbored animosity toward me for a long time, but this was clearly the first time I had ever met her. Where does this hostility come from? I was frowning, wanting to catch her and ask for a clear explanation, when I saw her proudly lift her charming face and hand a handful of white rabbit candies to Li Haonan. "Brother, have some candy. I brought it myself. It's really sweet. I'm several years older than you, so calling me brother isn't quite appropriate. You should call me uncle instead," Li Haonan said in a low voice as he took the candy. Chen Jiqing looked up at Li Haonan's well-defined features and immediately pouted, saying, "Brother, if you hadn't said so, I would have thought you were the same age as me." Li Haonan couldn't help but chuckle softly. "Do I really look that young? You really do, you really do." Chen Jiqing nodded her head like a chicken pecking at rice. "Brother, you should smile like this, youthful, sunny, and still full of masculinity." Li Haonan laughed cheerfully. "Ha ha ha, I never thought I'd have a chance to relive my teenage years." Chen Jiqing also smiled at Li Haonan with a radiant expression, then suddenly turned to me and said, "Sister-in-law, you should smile more too. You look too serious with that stern face, standing next to brother. People who don't know might think you're his old aunt." I laughed my ass off. I didn't say a word, just casually picked up the broom I had just used to sweep chicken droppings. The broom's tail still has chicken droppings I didn't shake off. Perfect. It's just right for whipping chickens. We've only just met, and you're shamelessly batting your eyes at my man. If it's not a chicken, then what is it, auntie? Why does she want to hit me? I'm so scared." Just as my broom was about to strike Chen Jiqing's face, Li Haonan grabbed hold of it. Chen Jiqing hid behind Aunt Xiao, claiming to be afraid, but her eyes were full of provocation when she looked at me. I was instantly furious, knowing that Li Haonan wouldn't let go. I had no choice but to say to him, "Let go. I need to go clean up the chicken droppings." Li Haonan saw through my thoughts, not only refusing to let go but also scolding me angrily. "Look how considerate she is, bringing so many candies all the way from the city for us. Not only did you not say thank you, but you also kept a dark face the whole time. Who are you trying to show this to, Su Qingyun? I'm telling you, don't be unreasonable and stir up trouble for no reason." In the past, he always said I was a considerate and caring good wife. Now, this woman who suddenly appeared, shamelessly embarrassing me, not only did he not stand up for me, but he also pinned the unfounded label of unreasonable on me. Furious, I pushed him away. "Get lost, or I'll slap you too." Li Haonan was pushed back a step by me, but he quickly grabbed my broom, his voice so cold it seemed to freeze the very words. "Su Qingyun, I'm telling you one more time, don't go too far, or don't blame me later." This was the first time he had spoken to me in such a serious tone. I'm dazed. unable to see clearly for a moment whether the him before marriage or after marriage is the real him. The village chief and Aunt Zhao, seeing that I was about to clash with Li Haonan, quickly pulled Chen Jiqing away. Chen Jiqing didn't want to leave. She looked up, bewildered, and asked, "Auntie, what did I say wrong just now? Why did she react so strongly and want to hit me?" Since she was from the city, Aunt Zhao didn't dare to offend her easily and could only brush it off with a few words. "You didn't do anything wrong, you didn't say anything wrong." Chen Jiqing smiled sweetly, her expression innocent and naive, and said, "Ah, this mouth of mine, I just can't seem to stop telling the truth. Next time, I must remember not to speak carelessly." Aunt Zhao, afraid I might rush over and tear her mouth apart, quickly dragged her away. Li Haonan let go of my hand. "What on earth is wrong with you? It should be me asking you, right? She just said that about me. Are you dead? Couldn't you say a word to help me?" Li Haonan didn't think there was anything wrong with his earlier behavior and even confidently made excuses. "Didn't you see the village chief accompanying her? How could I dare to embarrass the village chief for you? Do we still want to stay in the village in the future?" I stared at him intently. "Is that so? You doubt me? Aren't you worthy of suspicion? I think you've been bewitched by that educated youth and can't bear to say a single bad word about her." Li Haonan looked at me, furious. "Su Qingyun, you're absolutely out of your mind." This was our first argument, all because of an educated youth who had been in the village for less than half an hour. During dinner, seeing that my expression had softened a bit, Li Haonan suddenly said, "Although the village chief didn't say anything just now, he must have been very dissatisfied with your attitude. I'll go talk to him, so we don't miss out on any benefits the village might offer later." With that, he finished his meal, went to the kitchen to fetch 7 or 8 fresh eggs, grabbed a pack of brown sugar, and headed out the door. I glanced up and noticed that the path he was taking wasn't leading toward the village chief's house at all, but rather in the direction of the commune office. I remembered the village chief saying that Chen Jiqing was staying inside the commune office. My heart suddenly felt as if a massive boulder had been placed on it, impossible to lift, nearly suffocating me. Li Haonan didn't return until 9:30 in the evening. The room was pitch black. I didn't leave a light on for him. He tiptoed over and pulled the light switch, the sudden brightness making him squint. He waited for his eyes to adjust before opening them, then unexpectedly met my gaze as I stood in the living room. "Ah," he was startled, his brow furrowing. "It's so late, why aren't you asleep yet?" He said this without daring to look at me, clearly feeling guilty. My voice turned as cold as an ice cellar. "How could I sleep when you haven't even returned from Chen Jiqing's house?" As soon as I finished speaking, Li Haonan's face immediately darkened. "You actually followed me. I was just making a casual guess, but I didn't expect to be right." He immediately flew into a rage. "Su Qingyun, I only realized today that you are the kind of person who would stalk someone behind their back. I also only realized today that I was blind to have fallen for such a despicable person who has nothing but looks and not a shred of morality." Without even looking at him, I turned around, went back inside, and closed the door. Tears had long blurred my vision, and I silently wiped them away to comfort myself. "It's okay, Su Qingyun, he's just a man with 2 legs. If this one doesn't work out, just kick him to the curb." But before kicking him out, I want to get back the $500 I gave him earlier. But I never expected that in just a few days, he would say the money was already spent and even ask me for another sum. We didn't speak to each other for several days in a row. During that time, Chen Jiqing came to look for him a few times, and as if putting on a show for me, he turned her down right in front of me. But as soon as I went out to work, he immediately left to find Chen Jiqing. I no longer wanted to dwell on what a man and a woman alone together might have been doing. After 5 days of Cold War, Li Haonan couldn't hold back any longer and finally spoke to me, but the first thing he said was an apology. "Qingyun, please don't be angry anymore, okay? I was wrong that day, but you have to believe me. When I was at Chen Jiqing's place, I was only helping her draw water from the well. I also told her not to take it personally with us. After all, she's from the city. What kind of background does she have, and what kind do we have? Now the whole village is fawning over her. If we offend her, who knows how she might make things difficult for us." I still didn't say a word, confidently thinking I had taken it in. He then spoke to me as usual, with a clear conscience. "You go eat first and get to work. I'll read for a bit before eating." With that, he went inside to read. This year marks the first exam since the resumption of the college entrance examination, and I heard the test questions will be very easy. Li Haonan wants to go and take it. I also want to go, but Li Haonan said to me, "If you also go to take the college entrance exam, the farm work in our fields will just go to waste. To allow him to focus wholeheartedly on his studies, I took on all the household chores, big and small. Between taking the college entrance exam and doing the farm work, I thought for a moment and said, let it go to waste then. If I can get into university, I won't have to deal with the yellow earth for the rest of my life. At that moment, Li Haonan seemed to grow anxious. He took my hand and spoke earnestly, Qingyun, to be honest with you, I actually hope you don't take the college entrance exam this year and wait until next year instead. I looked at him with confusion. Why? Li Haonan seemed to have prepared a set of reasons in advance. Mom and Dad haven't been in good health lately. The 500 yuan you gave me last time has already been spent. The money left at home now is only enough for one person to go to college. Before he could finish, I frowned and asked, how did it get spent so quickly? What illness did Mom and Dad get this time? Is it serious? Li Haonan and I are from neighboring villages. After we got married, we moved into the house my parents left for me, while his parents live in their own home and don't live with us. As far as I know, their health has always been quite good. I never expected this illness to be so serious. And it ended up costing all 500 yuan. My intention was simply to show concern for their health, but in Li Haonan's view, he misunderstood it as me blaming my in-laws for spending money recklessly. Li Haonan suddenly darkened his expression and said dejectedly, Qingyun, they didn't want it to be like this either. It's all my fault for not being able to earn enough money. Now that they're old, they have to spend their daughter-in-law's money just to see a doctor. Every time I think about this, I can't help but want to slap myself twice. As he spoke, he was about to slap himself in the face, and I quickly grabbed his hand. Don't do that. He held my hand in his and continued, Qingyun, don't worry, I will work hard to earn that 500 yuan and pay you back. It's just that it might not be very quick. The doctor said their condition isn't serious anymore, but they still need 500 yuan for recovery. Once I earn enough to give my parents the 500 yuan, I'll pay you back the 500. Even if I were foolish, I could tell that his words were hinting around, trying to ask me for money again. I quickly cut off his path. You have great ambition, and I support you. You're so capable, you'll surely earn a lot of money very soon. Li Haonan didn't expect me to say that, and his eyes instantly froze in surprise. I pretended not to see and asked him, so what kind of job are you planning to look for? He hemmed and hawed for a long time but couldn't say what kind of job he wanted to find. In fact, he had never even thought about looking for a job in the first place. I looked at him and said, as for my college entrance exam, let me think about it a bit more. Li Haonan's face visibly darkened. I pretended not to notice, as usual, went into the kitchen to tidy up, then picked up the hoe and went out to plant vegetables. Halfway there, I suddenly realized I had forgotten to bring the vegetable seeds. As I turned back, I saw Li Haonan coming out of the house, heading in the direction of the commune office. I followed without a second thought. Just as I had suspected, Chen Jiqing and Li Haonan had known each other for a long time, and they were even in a romantic relationship, yet Li Haonan had married me. A wave of immense conspiracy swept before my eyes, and I felt cold from head to toe. Arriving at the commune office door, as soon as I reached the window, the ambiguous sounds of the two came from inside. Brother Haonan, when are you going to divorce that old woman? I live alone in the commune every day, and I really miss you terribly. You little temptress, haven't I come to keep you company now? But I want you to be with me every day, soon, soon. Chen Jiqing's eyes suddenly lit up, and he looked excitedly at Li Haonan. Did you get all her money? No, I only got 500. Didn't you say she had 2,000? I'll try my best to trick her into handing it all over in the next few days. All right, don't be upset. Let me give you a kiss. Ugh, wasn't yesterday enough? Not enough. Next came the sound of clothes being taken off. I was so angry that I wanted to set their bed on fire and burn them both alive inside, but reason told me that if I did that, I would be throwing my whole life away. That despicable man and woman were simply not worth sacrificing my entire life for. I stood up to leave, but the hoe accidentally hit the window frame with a thud. I gasped, and the intimate sounds inside abruptly stopped. Who's there? As the words fell, Li Haonan quickly opened the door and stepped out. I quickly ducked down and hid in a nearby haystack. Li Haonan stood at the door for a moment, then started walking in my direction. I tried my best to stay hidden so he wouldn't notice me, but I couldn't stop breaking out in a cold sweat. I wasn't afraid of being discovered by Li Haonan. At worst, it would just mean an open confrontation, but I haven't gotten my money back yet, and I haven't taken revenge on those scumbags for treating me like this. I can't accept it. I prayed in my heart that he wouldn't discover it. At that moment, a black cat darted out from somewhere. Meow. Li Haonan was so startled that he jumped up, picked up a stone, and threw it at it, cursing, "You beast, you ruined my plans, get away from me." The black cat meowed and darted behind Li Haonan. Li Haonan was about to chase after it when Chen Jiqing, disheveled, came out of the house and stopped him. She said maliciously, "Brother Nan, just ignore it. I'll go buy some rat poison to kill it later." Li Haonan watched the black cat disappear from sight before giving up. He then turned around, wrapped his arm around Chen Jiqing's waist, and went back inside. As soon as they entered the house, the sounds of their intimate and explicit activities immediately rose and fell in succession. I hid in the haystack for a while longer before quietly leaving and heading home. I don't have time to think about how Chen Jiqing knew I had money, or how she and Li Haonan even met. As soon as I got home, I locked the door from the inside and searched every possible place where Li Haonan could have hidden money. I actually found it, hidden under the floor tile at the kitchen threshold. I dug out the money and counted it. There were still 480 yuan in total. Fortunately, that bastard hadn't spent it all yet. I put the money back exactly as it was and cleared away all traces of my presence. Just as I stepped out and opened the door, I saw Li Haonan returning from Chen Jiqing's place, carrying a fresh piece of pork head meat in his hand. He was clearly taken aback to see me standing at the door. "Why are you back at this time? Have you finished all the work in the fields?" After saying this, he seemed to realize his tone was more reproachful than anything, and then added, "You came back just in time. Look, I just bought your favorite pork offal. You can try my cooking later." Bullshit about what I like to eat. It's clearly what he likes to eat, but hey, if it's free, why not eat it? While he was still in the kitchen stir-frying other dishes, I finished the whole bowl of pork offal by myself. When he came out with the vegetables and saw the empty plate, his face turned darker than the bottom of a pot, but he didn't dare to get angry and had to hold it in. I felt so relieved after seeing that. However, it was even more satisfying to slap that despicable Chen Jiqing. Li Haonan just stood by, watching helplessly, seething with anger but not daring to lay a hand on me. He looked as gloomy as if he were constipated. "But who told her to shamelessly throw herself at me like that?" "Then I'll beat her face until even her own mother wouldn't recognize her." Our village is small, with only about 10 households. Whenever any family holds a banquet, the entire village is invited. On this day, Aunt Li in the village was marrying off her daughter. Li Haonan and I went to attend the banquet, and we had just taken our seats. Chen Jiqing, as if she had been waiting nearby for a long time, followed the scent and made her way to our table. She truly didn't take me seriously, even though there was an empty seat right next to me. She deliberately chose to sit beside Li Haonan. The food was served, and when she saw it was a plate of pork knuckles, her eyes suddenly lit up. She picked up a piece and placed it in Li Haonan's bowl. She called out to him, "Brother Haonan, pork knuckles are my favorite, but they're too greasy for me to eat. Could you help me remove the skin?" As soon as she finished speaking, everyone at the table looked at her with strange expressions, but she didn't seem to care at all. This educated youth from the city is really shameless, completely unaware of what the word shame even means. "All right, I'll teach her a good lesson once I've had my fill." As I picked up a piece of pork knuckle to eat, Li Haonan had already removed the skin from the pork knuckle in his bowl and placed the lean part into Chen Jiqing's bowl. Chen Jiqing pouted and thanked him. Just as she was about to take a bite, she saw me stuff a piece of pork skin into my mouth, eating so messily that my mouth was greasy. Ugh! She suddenly vomited, clutching her chest with a horrified expression, and screamed as she looked at me, "Oh my God, that's absolutely disgusting. How can you eat such fatty pork? Sister-in-law, are you really that desperate for a bite to eat? In my house, I never eat pork skin." Her voice was shrill and unpleasant, drawing the attention not only of our table but also of the people at the neighboring table. I slammed my chopsticks down with a loud clatter. Li Haonan quickly grabbed my hand and said, "What are you doing? She's from the city and used to finer food. It's true that she can't compare to us, who are used to eating meat in the countryside. I was just helping her by removing the pork skin. Why are you getting so angry?" Smack! I slapped him across the face and retorted, "So if she can't have children, are you going to help with that too?" I struck with all my might, using every ounce of my pig-slaughtering strength. Li Haonan was sent tumbling off his stool by my slap. He cried out in pain, then quickly scrambled to his feet, glaring at me furiously. "Su Qingyun, I'm telling you, my patience has its limits. Don't push me to lay a hand on you." I stepped forward, meeting his murderous gaze, and gave him another hard slap. "You despicable creature, when someone insults your woman, not only do you fail to defend me, but you even dare to threaten me. You think you're so capable, huh? Or is it that I'm not your woman? Chen Jiqing is your woman. Right. Li Haonan hadn't even recovered from the shock when I slapped him again, leaving him dizzy and disoriented. He was so furious that he jumped up, ready to come at me, but when he heard me say that Chen Jiqing was his woman, he was afraid others might find out something, so he had to swallow his anger and weakly explain, "What are you talking about? Chen Jiqing is a pure and innocent girl. How can you joke about her like that? What kind of pure and innocent girl would be shameless? Enough to ask you to help her peel pig skin. Look around at all the unmarried girls here at the feast. Would any of them ignore me and ask you to help them peel pig skin?" Li Haonan's face turned dark with anger, and he was left speechless by my retort. Chen Jiqing turned pale with anger and scolded me, "Old woman, who are you calling impure? My relationship with Brother Nan is completely innocent. If you keep spouting nonsense and insulting us here, I'll have someone arrest you and throw you in jail right away." I slapped her across the face in return. "I'm teaching my man a lesson. What gives you, a shameless wretch, the right to speak to me?" "Ah." Chen Jiqing covered her stinging cheek, tears streaming down her face like pear blossoms in the rain, and threw herself into Li Haonan's arms. It hurts so much. She hit me so hard I'm about to die from the pain." "Brother Nan, what are you just standing there for? Hurry up and beat her up to vent my anger," embracing each other in full view of everyone. Even if there was nothing between them before, there certainly was now. Li Haonan saw everyone casting disdainful glances at them and suddenly panicked, wanting to push Chen Jiqing away, but she clung to him like an octopus, impossible to pry off no matter how hard he tried. Frightened, Li Haonan roughly set her down on a stool and quickly distanced himself, saying, "Calm down. Don't shamelessly throw yourself at me like this. I'm a married man." Chen Jiqing was usually spoiled by Li Haonan to the point of having no regard for rules. Seeing Li Haonan dare to treat her so rudely, she couldn't tell what the occasion was for a moment. She immediately stood up again, hugged Li Haonan, and began to question him. "Brother Nan, what on earth is wrong with you? My whole face is swollen from her beating, and not only do you not feel sorry for me, but you're also scolding me. Do you even have a conscience?" As soon as she said this, I didn't even need to speak up. The aunties and older women at the banquet immediately started chattering and cursing. "Ugh, what kind of shameless creature is this, flirting right in front of someone's wife? What a disgrace." "Exactly, my big yellow dog is about to mate, and even he isn't as eager to pair up as she is. If she were my daughter, I'd rather beat her to death with a stick than let her go out and embarrass herself like this. This Li Haonan is no good either, always eyeing what's in the pot while holding a bowl in his hand. I heard this educated youth came from the city. She's really bringing shame to city folks. I think we should ask the village chief to drive her out, so she doesn't corrupt the girls in the village." Yes, exactly. Let's go talk to the village chief about this after the feast. Everyone, come along, together. More and more voices joined in, and Chen Jiqing was so embarrassed she wished she could disappear into the ground, but it was as if she had decided to throw caution to the wind, like a bristling grasshopper, and she began to shout back at the aunties and grannies who were scolding her. "Shut up, all of you, you bunch of country bumpkins who only know how to farm. What right do you have to criticize me, no matter how low I fall? It's not your place to lecture me. I'm telling you, if you dare to gossip about me again, I'll have someone come and make sure you regret it." Watching her go off like that, I was completely stunned. She's really brave, daring to take on the group of aunties with just her words. The aunties were also stunned for a moment before realizing they had been insulted. One by one, they rolled up their sleeves and clenched their fists, opening their mouths wide, not to curse at her, but to spit all their saliva at her. "Bitch, who do you think you are, daring to lecture us? Watch me drown you in my spit." "Ah." Chen Jiqing was hit by the auntie's spit and, terrified, burrowed into Li Haonan's arms. Li Haonan was not spared either. His eyes were glued shut by the auntie's saliva. He wiped it away with his hand, but within seconds, it was stuck again. With no other choice, he quickly took Chen Jiqing and left, regardless of his status. "Qing Yun, that educated youth is cunning and ruthless. You need to be careful of her," an aunt suddenly said to me. I frowned and asked her what was going on. She said, "The cats raised by Aunt Xiao and I have gone missing. They usually love going to the commune office area the most. When Aunt Xiao and I went to look for them, we found them skinned, their bodies thrown aside in the haystack." The aunt wiped away her tears, unable to continue. I also felt a chill hearing that. How could this woman be so vicious? However, it's fortunate that my aunt reminded me, which allowed me to fight a beautiful battle later on. After Li Haonan and Chen Jiqing left, I continued to enjoy the feast and even packed a lot of food to bring back, but as soon as I had just put away the things, Li Haonan returned right after. As soon as he came back, he smashed all the things I had packed and scolded. Our matter has become known to everyone. Su Qingyun, are you satisfied now? It's one thing for you to hit me, but you even beat Chen Jiqing until she was bruised and swollen. If I hadn't stopped her just now, she would have had her family from the city come to seek justice for her. I wasn't the least bit afraid of his fury, but playing along a little wouldn't hurt. I looked at him and said, then tell me, how should this be resolved? Li Haonan pretended to think it over with great difficulty. Chen Jiqing is a generous person. If you give me 500 yuan now, I'll take it to her right away and say it's compensation from you. I'm sure she won't hold it against you then. Oh, so after all that ranting, he just wanted money. You should have said so earlier. I turned and went into the house. Li Haonan thought I was going to get the money, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. It wasn't until he saw me come out with a kitchen knife that his raised lips twitched as he looked at me. Su Qingyun, what do you mean by this? I swung the knife and split the stool in front of him. That's exactly what I mean. Li Haonan was so terrified that he collapsed to the ground, and by the time he regained his senses, he had already fled, wailing and howling. Given the earlier warning from my aunt, I was afraid they might come back to seek revenge on me at night, so I didn't dare to sleep, but unexpectedly, I caught two villains sneaking into my house, intending to kidnap me. However, their skills were no match for mine, and I ended up turning the tables and killing them instead. Who sent you to capture me? The cold gleam of the kitchen knife swept over their heads, and they were so frightened that they immediately confessed. Chen Jiqing and Li Haonan had sent them. I locked them in the woodshed. Early the next morning, I asked the village chief to call the police for me. When the police arrived, I handed these two men over to them, then followed the police to the commune office to arrest Chen Jiqing and Li Haonan, but I never expected that this pair of scoundrels would start their business early in the morning. The incident of a thief breaking into my house to kidnap me quickly spread throughout the village, and even reached neighboring villages and beyond. Before long, a large group of people followed 3 police officers to catch the mastermind behind it all. The police tried to stop them but couldn't. When we arrived at the commune office, even before getting close, we could hear the sounds of moaning and groaning coming from inside. Anyone who is married knows what that sound means. Someone immediately started cursing at Chen Jiqing. Someone couldn't hold back any longer and kicked the door open right away. Next, everyone saw a scene that was too disgraceful to look at. Naked and lying on the ground, the two were reluctant to part. Suddenly, they saw the door being kicked open and screamed in unison. Terrified, panicked, they desperately tried to find clothes to cover themselves, only to discover that their clothes had already been torn to shreds. Helpless, they could only pick up the fragments to cover the crucial parts. Get dressed and come out now, the police officer said to them with a grim expression. Half an hour later, the two came out dressed, and 3 police officers stepped forward to handcuff them. Chen Jiqing didn't see me in the crowd and was unaware that her scheme had been exposed. With tears in her eyes, she even questioned the police, asking why they were arresting her. It wasn't until the police brought up the 2 men they had caught that she realized the seriousness of the situation. Chen Jiqing's face instantly turned pale, and he pointed at Li Haonan, shouting, "Officer, it was him, he was the one who ordered people to do this. I have nothing to do with it at all." Li Haonan could never have imagined, even if he racked his brains, that the person he cherished so dearly would sell him out so quickly. However, that wasn't the most devastating blow to him. Chen Jiqing desperately tugged at the police officer's arm, shouting that he was wronged. Suddenly, a man rushed out from the crowd, his face filled with anxiety as he ran up to Chen Jiqing. "Shanshan, didn't you tell me you went back to your grandmother's house? Why are you here? Why did you lie to me?" The man seemed unable to continue speaking and grabbed Chen Jiqing, beating her fiercely. "You shameless woman, how dare you cheat on me? With another man, I'll beat you to death." Everything happened too quickly. By the time the police reacted, the man had already finished beating her and was now wrestling with Li Haonan. Both men were strong and powerful, and their punches landed with force, causing them to grunt in pain at first and then howl in agony, but neither let go first. Finally, they beat each other unconscious, and it was only then that the police separated them. The police quickly took them back to the police station. It was only then that I found out why Chen Jiqing knew I had money. It turned out that when I went to withdraw money, she accidentally bumped into me, and the passbook in my hand fell to the ground. She immediately picked it up and returned it to me. I didn't think much about it at the time, but I never expected that in just a moment, she caught a glimpse of my bankbook balance. At that time, Li Haonan happened to be working at Chen Jiqing's house. After Chen Jiqing returned, she immediately discussed it with him. The two of them came up with a plan. Li Haonan would take the initiative to say he liked me, marry me, then swindle the money from my hands and kick me to the curb. Li Haonan and I had been married for half a year, and he still hadn't managed to swindle all the money from me. Chen Jiqing couldn't hold back her impatience and grew anxious, so she proactively applied to be sent down to our village, attempting to urge Li Haonan to speed things up, but Li Haonan is a useless scoundrel. After marrying me, he couldn't change his old ways and kept fooling around everywhere. I had long suspected his motives for marrying me. Chen Jiqing and Li Haonan were suspected of fraud and kidnapping me, and were sentenced to 8 and 15 years in prison, respectively. However, for the two of them, this was not the worst part. The worst part was that Li Haonan was severely beaten by a man, leaving him almost paralyzed from the waist down, with only his two hands able to move. The man also harbored resentment for being deceived by Chen Jiqing, who had swindled both his emotions and his money. On the day Chen Jiqing was sent to prison, he was beaten into a vegetative state by a mentally ill inmate and died in prison just 2 days later. After Li Haonan was released from prison, he had been disconnected from society for too long, and his parents and other siblings were unwilling to take care of him. Not long after, he starved to death at home. Through hard work, I was admitted to university. After graduation, I followed in my parents' footsteps and became a people's police officer. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.